not recording yet, is it?
100%.
Recording in progress.
Right. Welcome everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the February 28th regular meeting for the Midcoast Community Council. Take the roll. Where is it in? Hands up. Excuse me. Yes. Sure.
All right, I just unmuted.
Awesome.
All right, so we have Gus,
Here.
Greg,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Dan,
Here.
Claire,
Here.
Kimberly, and myself. I am remote due to illness, so I'm trying not to get anyone else sick. So anyway, I guess that's it.
Great. Okay. And then let's go to so we have somebody to give us a board of supervisors report.
I'm looking. I don't see anyone from the county at this time.
Okay.
Other government officials? Well, Lisa's here. I don't know if she's here officially. I don't even see Sue Young.
Lisa's got her hand raised, so go ahead, Lisa.
Let's see. So the Planning Commission today approved the CDP for the Caltrans State Route 1 multi-asset roadway rehab project 4-0. The Caltrans project manager and several engineers were present via Zoom to answer questions, and they clarified that. Bullet list here. The Class 2 bike lanes will have bike lane symbol painted on the pavement throughout the project. The Surfers Beach is the only location where a sign is proposed for, quote, no parking bike lane, unquote. They wanted to limit the signage in general due to aesthetics. They confirmed that it is illegal to park in a bike lane, even without the no parking sign. At Surfers Beach, Caltrans is not adding any treatment along the outside of the bike lane on State Route 1 northbound, nor any blockage to the informal parking lot there. Then shifting to Arroyo de Medio, due to the constrained road width across Arroyo de Medio, Caltrans Traffic Engineering recommended adding the Class 2 bike lane on the southbound direction and detouring the northbound bike traffic at Miramar Drive to the newly constructed multimodal trail and bridge. And the last item here, I tried to ask about this, but I don't understand these different electronic things they want to put on their poles. And so they said the MCC had a question about CCTV. What is that? Closed circuit television. Anyway, they said that those had been removed from the project due to public objection. And I have no way to elaborate on that. If you have any questions, you have to wait for the video. And then at the end of the meeting, the director's report. So on Cypress Point, the Planning Commission hearing will be Wednesday, March 13 at 6 p.m. at Oceano Hotel at the Gatehouse, which is the separate one-story building added behind the Brewing Company in 2016. The room can seat 100 people, and it has 2 walls of windows. The meeting will be in person only. The single item agenda will likely be posted tomorrow or Friday this week. The staff report, which will have the proposed conditions of approval and all that stuff, will be posted by Thursday, March 7th, if not at the latest. And then the memo from Director Monowitz explaining the change in process due to AB 1449 and responding to comments on the draft EIR That will be posted this Friday, March 1. So you have a drop of information coming Friday, and then the next drop won't be until like the Thursday, March 7th. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, do we have any other comments from government officials or anyone who wants to ask Lisa the questions?
I don't see, no,
No.
no, they're gonna, public is here.
We have Kimberly. Len, do you want to say something?
On the public comment there.
You're muted, Len.
He's back.
This will be on items not on the agenda.
Yeah, item's not on the agenda.
I wanted to ask Lisa something.
So are we done with public officials then?
Yeah, yes, we're done with public officials. This would be comments for things not on the agenda.
Can I ask Lisa a
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
Lisa, I'm sorry, did you say that the meeting was on the 16th? I mean, the 13th?
Wednesday, the 13th, the same day you have your meeting, or normally have your meeting,
Okay, I'm just looking the wrong place. Okay, at 7 p.m.,
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Oh, thank you. And what are they? I thought they had already made all the statements they were going to make about AB 11449, whatever.
Yeah,
it
but
is.
that was very official. What you didn't get it directly from Monowitz. You got it through me. No, he's gonna write a memo to the community, and it will be posted on the website, I suppose, along with this meeting. And that will be the real information, not just through me.
But well, I also got it from Tim Fox.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, but
That's
we shouldn't expect anything new. Is that this is just public information, right?
nothing new.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Harvey, I saw you just dropped in. Do you have anything for us from Half Moon Bay?
Indeed, I do. Sorry, I'm late. The link on the agenda didn't work. I tried. Anyway, I have some old news and some fairly recent news. The old news is that the city council has passed an ordinance to create a rental registry for all Half Moon Bay landlords. That is in preparation for getting the information so that we can enact rent control, which would be the next step in the process of getting protections for our low-income residents. We also have engaged with or about to engage with a consultant who's going to green our buildings, all the municipal buildings. We're going to have heat pump water heaters, EV charging stations, getting rid of all the gas appliances. So the city council is going to walk the walk that we want our residents to follow. And we're going to do that very soon. So that's exciting. And I'm looking forward to what we're going to be able to do with greening our infrastructure. At the last city council meeting, there were two items that were discussed at length, but no conclusions were reached. One has to do with automatic license plate readers. We directed the city staff to get more information about what other cities are doing and how we can protect any of the data that would come from these ALPRs. There's a lot to be learned. I was the only city councilman who opposed the whole idea, but the four others wanted more information. And the last item that was discussed was a minimum wage ordinance. We had previously said that we'd like to hike the minimum wage in the city, which is currently $17.01. And there was a lot of discussion previously about whether it'd be $19 or $20, whether big businesses would be, or larger businesses would be the first to be required to have it. A little wrinkle came in that it turns out that perhaps, and I emphasize perhaps, if we did raise the minimum wage, people who would be getting that wage would not be eligible for various benefits like Medi-Cal, rent vouchers, health insurance. So it gets tricky. That we don't want to hurt the low-income people. We want to help them. So we also directed staff to get more information about how many people would be affected, so that we can make an intelligent decision about helping our low-income people with a minimum wage. That's all I got. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I would love to actually just sort of make a little comment, which is I moved here from the Upper East Side of Manhattan, which is a place that features lots of rent control. And I will tell you, I lived in an apartment where the person who theoretically rented it had been in there since 1978, which was also the last time anyone had ever made any kind of renovation to that apartment, because the second it goes rent control, now the landlord has no incentive to ever invest anything in renovating such a place ever again. Meanwhile, the person who had it then had a massive incentive to sort of under the table flip it by renting it to me, and making the margin off the differential between the slightly below market rate I was paying him and the rent control rate that he was paying to whoever actually owned that building. So it's, yeah, I understand it's going to happen, and that's the end of the story, but it's not nearly the cut and dry, unambiguous benefit that it might appear on the surface to be, at least from what I have seen in Manhattan, where they use quite a bit of it. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that. Anybody else have
Harvey, thank you. I know that you're interested in EV charging. So I wanted, and if the city is going to be working on that, I wanted to remind you, they had an article in the Review a couple weeks ago about the state of repair of public EV charging stations in the city, most of which apparently don't work reliably. And I tried to verify that with city staff, and they said it was true. So I wonder if the city could have any influence over getting the existing chargers to work.
I just bought an EV, and I can confirm that finding a working charging station in Half Moon Bay is not easy. So I will certainly put as much pressure as I can on our staff to make sure that the existing chargers stay maintained, and that we install more in the near future. So yeah, I hear you, and we need to do better.
Thank you.
Harvey, do you know what the problems are with these charges? Are they all similar problems, or they're all
They don't work.
drawing up? Okay.
So, the Electrify America station at the B of A on Main Street got me for this area. Looks good.
That's the one that I use, and there are 4 potential slots, one of which has never ever worked, and a couple of the others are intermittent. So it's a crapshoot whether or not you get a working charger.
Well, actually not about that per se, but I think the Caltrans plan to update the Highway 1 from parts of 92 actually get planned this morning.
I think Lisa just addressed it.
Can't hear you speaking, Kimberly. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, I arrived a couple of minutes late and I missed what you said earlier about the Highway 1 improvements.
I think Lisa said that the CCTV component had been removed from the plan.
Oh, it has. So there is no vehicle surveillance, which is what I wanted to ask Harvey about, because I remember there were 2 Half Moon Bay City Council meetings in which this came up for discussion. And I remember that there were some impassioned comments made by council members about vehicle surveillance. So if those pieces have been removed, then I guess that makes my question moot.
In 2019, we were very clear that the whole council was against license plate readers. This time, there are claims that some of the privacy concerns have been addressed, and the efficiency of catching criminals is increased. None of which has persuaded me, but as I said, we're trying to get more data about whether or not that makes any sense for Half Moon Bay. But that's independent of the Caltrans attempt to install cameras. That's we're talking about something that the sheriff's department would install.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, Len, you want to make a comment?
Will be public comment.
Yeah, that was it for government.
And you're muted.
Oh, not anymore, isn't it?
I got it. So these are comments derived from the Planning Commission meeting today. I wanted to raise 2 points. One comment made by members of the public dealt with the loss of parking space on Highway 1 due to making it a no parking area. I asked the project manager if any attempt had been made to quantify how many spaces would be lost using the guideline that on an active surfing day, how many people are parking along Highway 1 on the east side. And I proposed a number 35, so just take that as a rough guess of people who park there. So that's
all by himself.
Oh, boy, that's good.
Then he told me that he got a treat. Come on. You got a treat, right? For going to the potty.
I can't.
Can we mute? That's mom's makeup.
Jenny, you might have
Mute Jenny.
I got it.
okay. So therefore, the number I mentioned was 35, not as officially stated anywhere, but use it as an approximation. You have coming up in 2 to 3 months a proposal from the Granada Community Services District for Park Community Center and changing the parking around. And my rough estimate in terms of the parking area that is currently devoted to people using Surfers Beach, but in GCSD territory, will probably be reduced to approximately 35 spaces. So there's a net loss there. In addition, during the hearing, there was asked about the right-of-way. Now, the right-of-way is used informally by people to park there. You can find various numbers to assign to it, but all of that's just going off the street. So there's a significant loss of parking right there. And the question posed is what to do about that, but there's no action item from this. And I would suggest to the council that if they want to look at it further, they might spend time to ask more particularly about that and what could be done. In addition, at Sam's Restaurant, the same condition occurs. That is, on the east side of Highway 1 there's active parking there, especially on busy days. And I asked them, this is after the meeting, I asked them, will you post that as no parking in that area, which would and also be shown as a bicycle lane? And they said, yes, they would. So that's 3 areas where parking is to be reduced in the framework that was presented today. So that's for the council to consider if you want to do any further action or look into it. The second item, and this is right toward the end of the meeting, Supervisor Director Monowitz gave an update and talked about something that had come up at the previous meeting. What about the multimodal trail? He referred to it specifically now as the East Side Trail and indicated that the county would be entering into discussions with the Granada Community Services District about that project so that it can move forward for permitting. And that's the project that would reconfigure the parking there as well. In addition, the right of the Caltrans right-of-way has been, and you can go all the way back to the earlier safety and mobility studies, been looked at an area where systematic parking off-road could be done there. This is not just letting people wander off and park, but doing it more systematically. And in requiring about this to Caltrans, they basically said they recognized that was an opportunity or a possibility, but it wasn't something they were planning. It would fall to the county to do an investigation and look at that possibility for parking that might replace some of the spaces on Highway 1. So I just want to give that for the council to consider in future agenda considerations. It's not up for further discussion today. Thanks.
Thanks,
That's
Len.
fine. Can I add something to the lost parking? There was also some significant loss of parking as a result of the bathroom at the surface, which there were used to be 23 spaces. I think now there's 6 normal, 2 electric, and 7. So, yeah, the general parking has been lost significantly.
Oh, I'm sorry. The one thing I would note is because conversations with the county and GCSD on that project go forward, and Caltrans is also privy within that framework as well. The council might want to ask what information they would get from the process, any participation from MCC, et cetera.
Thank you, Len. All right, next we have Sid.
Well, I had a question for Harvey, but you didn't really finish up with him. I guess you jumped over to Len. I guess my question was, do you know when they're going to be looking to, readdress the APLRs? Because I know I read a lot of comments about people whose, hardworking people whose trucks are broken into and all their tools are stolen. And of course, I haven't read as much about catalytic converters being stolen, but that would be something else. A lot of the crime that comes to the coast is actually from outside the area. And I think you remember at the Half Moon Bay meeting, somebody mentioned that they some gangs were driving all the way up from Southern California to rob a purse store in Carmel, and they caught them because of the automatic license plate readers. I feel safer knowing that they're out there when you think of criminals coming all throughout the whole coastside. And if they know Half Moon Bay doesn't have them, which almost every single other town on the peninsula has them except for Menlo Park, it sort of makes you guys a target. And by association, the rest of the Midcoast. So I also just wanted to say that on a previous meeting where you guys were talking about the rent control, I know one owner of 2 condos at Amesport, and she plans to sell them because she doesn't want to get involved in rent control. And I know that happens in San Francisco a lot too, where the landlords or the owners do not want to have renters, and they invoke the Ellis Act, so they just go out of the rental business. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I think you're kind of jumping the gun on that. You should just focus on getting more low-income housing for the people that need affordable housing. Thank you. Oh, and one other thing, as far as the government entity, there's a possibility that MWSD is going to be having a special meeting on Friday at 11, but I can't confirm it. It's not on our website yet. So I don't know what the agenda is going to be about or anything, but I was contacted today to see if we were available. Thank you.
Thanks, Sid. Next we have Steve Terry.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to, first of all, see if you can hear me because this is a new form of contact. Hear me okay? All right.
Yep.
Is this the part of the meeting where we comment on things not in the agenda, or is this still in response to government officials?
I think I might have accidentally skipped so if you need to respond to one of the government officials, you could also do that.
Oh, no, I do not. I do not know. But and that is what I did. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead and give the comment on items not on the agenda.
Okay. Well, this is actually kind of the issue I want to talk about, is because I think there's a little bit of a communication problem among the council and then by extension with the public, the community, because and what happened is, the council members will know, is I communicated to the council expecting something to be produced out of the last meeting, and then I was informed that no, that's not what had happened at the last meeting, and there was some back and forth. Some people communicated to me on that thread, some privately, and it seems like no one really kind of agreed on exactly what the consensus was at the previous meeting, and I watched the video 3 times over and had a different reading than everybody else, who all kind of had different readings, and so what I want to say is, it doesn't really matter what the issue was or who the folks were that I communicated with, but I just want to say, I think the bigger picture is, I think it'd be helpful if we tried, or the council tried, to communicate better what they're taking actions on at the end of every agenda item, or at the end of a meeting, or some section of the meeting. And I know at work, at business, this happens all the time. At the end of a meeting or a big section of a meeting, you say, okay, you review, okay, what are the action items? Let's go through the action items and next steps and that sort of thing. And then it gets reiterated to make sure we all agree on exactly what's happening. And maybe the council could start instituting some policy like that, or maybe the secretary could lead that and think about, and that'll make it easier to produce the minutes for the next meeting, from the previous meeting as well. Those are my comments, and I hope that this all just becomes a positive step forward. That's all I'm really looking to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. I think that's actually an excellent suggestion. Next up, Michelle Dragon.
Hi. The parking problem sounds really bad. Does the California Coastal Commission have jurisdiction over Caltrans for public access? I know they did in regards to the Surfers Beach stairs. Those stairs were built because CCC said you need to build the stairs to Caltrans. So I'm thinking that CCC, Eric Martinez, is our representative in this area. Perhaps a MCC email to Eric Martinez regarding this. I'll do a post on the Board of Supervisors meeting, and you can send the post to him so he doesn't have to, look through the meeting and stuff like that, if that's of any help. It's just a suggestion.
Thank you, Michelle. That's great. Then is that Danny?
Yeah, Danny, sure.
Hey, good evening. Thank you very much. Do I have good audio? Can anyone confirm?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent. Not on the agenda tonight, and something I'd like to talk about is the wildfire risk on the coast side. I am not certain of the degree of authority, but if CAL FIRE responds to the Midcoast Community Council requests, I'm wondering if they can basically address 2 questions, given the severe fire risk in the community. Number 1 is, are they the authority on an evacuation plan locally in the event of an emergency evacuation for a wildfire? And can they present the details of that plan at any point in the near future, if it exists? And the second part, for CAL FIRE as a fire authority, what do they think are the most important and effective fuel mitigation approaches we can take locally to mitigate the risk of wildfire in the community? And they're related, but they're 2 parts, and they're both high priority to the local community. Have we seen anything like that in recent MCC meetings or responses from CAL FIRE? That's my question.
So I think the first part was an evacuation plan. I don't know of any.
Yeah, there's what is the name of that thing?
Zone Haven.
Zone Haven. And CAL FIRE is in charge of it, or some emergency services in charge of it. We have had presentations on it, but we might want to do it again.
That's pretty good for a possible future agenda. And then what's the second part of the question?
Recommendations for fire prevention. Firewise communities, we've had presentations on that, and I still think it'd be wonderful for people to get involved in it. Are you familiar with that, right, Terry? Danny?
Vaguely. Were you referring to Zone Haven again?
No, Firewise communities.
Yes. Yep. I have heard a good deal about Firewise, and I have attended Denise and Nia's meetings. And I am aware that we don't have a local Firewise community, I'm thinking, still.
It's true. It has to be initiated by the people that live in a very small area. It's sort of a neighborhood kind of thing.
Yep.
We could do another presentation on that too, maybe.
All right. So let's write down that as a possible future agenda. Awesome. Thank you, Danny, for that comment. And then I see Sid.
Danny, I just going to give him quick info that he wanted. Try contacting Coastside Fire Protection District. They have their meetings on the last Wednesday of the month, and they just had theirs today at 4 p.m. And they are CAL FIRE, basically. I mean, it's a district, but CAL FIRE is our protection area that we contract out with CAL FIRE. Secondly, as far as fuel reduction, now you've got until June 30th. If you have any trees on your own property and you're in the unincorporated Midcoast area, you don't have to pay a fee to the county to cut them down. You can just go for it. And I would definitely suggest that because the fees are hefty. It costs a lot of money to cut the trees down too.
Yep, but, I'm familiar with the exemption, and yes. I'm hoping that Steve Monowitz's department will again extend that exemption. I'm assuming the MCC is on board and supporting that.
I'm not on the MCC, but it is a planning, and the Board of Supervisors are the ones that waive that fee. But I think your concern about fire is correct, and I'm told that they put out a RFP to do a countywide evacuation planning thing, and apparently it's going to be AI generated. So we'll see how that goes.
Awesome. Very powerful tools. Specifically on the evacuation route, I'd be interested to see if CAL FIRE has the authority and the plan to coordinate with local law enforcement to more or less lock open the traffic lights on the two exit routes. We're going to have so many people driving north on Highway 1 and driving south on Highway 1 in the event of a Quarry Park wildfire coming towards the town. We'll, in a practical sense, need everything from Lindemar to Manor District in Pacifica locked open for northbound traffic. Every single light in Half Moon Bay locked open for southbound traffic, not for minutes, but for hours. And it's going to cause crazy gridlock in every single one of the Highway 1 offshoot communities in a really panicky time.
I'm worried about that too. But they say from the meetings I've attended that that law enforcement will put one-way traffic outbound. So there won't be a lot of inbound traffic if there's a major fire.
Yeah, it's not the inbound traffic.
It sounds like, if I can just jump in here, this sounds like a conversation that either should happen with the two of you or that should.
Cool. Thank you. My 3 minutes are done. Have a good evening. Thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, wait, do we have another, is there another?
Barbara Bach, Dancing in Dynamite Society. She's muted.
Hi, sorry about that.
I'm really not sure how this process works. I thought we were supposed to write in for public comment, which I did. Am I supposed to read that, or how does that all work?
Yeah, and you get up to 3 minutes to say whatever.
Okay, well, great. I think, okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, I'm commenting about the situation on Murata Road,
Mhm.
and you know, you're probably all aware that it's in a pretty bad disrepair right now, and it's been eroding for many, many years due to the harbor causing it. And I'm really confused about whether or not we're getting any help on this road. And I don't know, does this body help in that situation, or am I supposed to continue to try to get our new supervisor to do something about it? I feel we need immediate help with riprap. Last year, I know in Santa Cruz, when the storms hit, they literally had flatbed trucks come in with huge boulders that they had cranes move into place. And now already, not even a year, you know, well, it's been a year, but they started last fall. They're, you know, doing major work. And so I just don't understand why we can't do the same thing for this beautiful part of the coast. I also feel that you know, the harbor needs to be dredged immediately. I know supposedly it's going to happen soon, but I really don't understand why, you know, why we're waiting. Now, today, I just got notice from the supervisor that they're going to make Murata Road a one-way road, which to me shows a complete lack. I mean, like literally on March 16th or March 6th, they're going to put in one-way traffic barriers or whatever. It seems to me they're completely unaware of how dangerous Magellan and Medio are at Highway 1. They're going to, it lacks knowledge of how cars that accidentally do come down those roads, how they're going to turn around, especially if you come down Magellan and you get near the Miramar restaurant, and the traffic would be going by the way they've directed it would be going down, sorry, I'm nervous, Magellan and Medio up north on Murata and then up on Magellan. And but two-way traffic would be allowed on Magellan and Medio for the residents. But of course, lots of people are going to accidentally turn on that road. How are they going to turn around? How are they going to turn around near the Miramar, where there's only room for one car right now anyway? But the whole thing, you know, lacks any concern about the erosion on the road. So that's my comment. Does this body help in that, or am I on my own?
We can help. Potentially, we can help advocate with the supervisor. So why don't I take it as a takeaway to follow up with you about that, and let's see what we can do.
Okay. Well, I did send in the letter that was sent to us today. I'm not really sure how much it's been distributed, but it was sent from the San Mateo County, from Mueller's office to the owner, one of the owners at the Miramar restaurant, and I was copied on it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Do you have any other public comments? Oh, Carl.
We have two letters to the MCC.
Yeah, Carl May, Moss Beach. I've been encouraged by a recent presentation by people from El Granada that involved the clearing and so forth, the use of pesticides and stuff on the outskirts of town. And they got heavily into some soil microbiology in that presentation. And Dan has also become quite interested in something called Kiss the Ground, or something similar to that, which is all about primarily soil microbiology, in other words, macro soil components. And we had the Dark Skies International. That's got stimulated a lot by games that were played with the fire station here in El Granada. And but I think the interest in Dark Skies has brought in quite a bit. So I'd like to add another little thing to this list. And it's an outfit called Quiet Parks International. And they're not exclusively parks. They're interested in quiet areas internationally. They do have an international presence. They're at www.quietparks.org. And like I said, they're global. They're interested in parks and open areas all the way from urban areas. I think they've only certified 4 urban parks internationally, but urban areas to huge wilderness areas and all kinds of environment in between. Just as we had a presentation on the Dark Skies, I'd be happy to some future meeting, a presentation on quiet parks international.
Thank you, Carl. Okay, I think that wraps up public comment, which takes us to the consent agenda, which would include minutes from January 24th, minutes from February 12th, and the letter supporting the new strategy for the El Granada school remodel. So we have either
whole item B.
Item B? Okay. So full item B. Does anybody else need to pull? No. So the
Motion to approve the consent agenda for item 3A.
For item 3A. Second. Okay, great. And can we do the roll?
Sorry, I had to unmute there. Okay. So let me just confirm it was, now you want agenda item 3A pulled?
No,
3B is
we're pulling the letter for CUSD, the El Granada School Model. That's 3B. We're leaving the minutes in the consent agenda.
Okay, sorry about that. Gus,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Kimberly, is Kimberly there?
Yes.
Okay, and me, yes. I think that's it. Okay. Did I miss anybody?
No.
Nope, we're good. Okay.
It normally gets picked to the end of the agenda, unfortunately.
Right, so then we will revisit the letter. All right, then that takes us to the first item on the regular agenda, which would be the Montana Mountain fights. That Kimberly and Scott will lead us in that.
Well, first of all, I have worked on this because I did promise we would bring this forward tonight. And I ran into several loose ends that I think still need to be tied up. So this is more of an update, and then we would approve a letter at the next meeting. I can put up the letter that we put up last time, but the issue is that there are 2 things. When the council had the tour back in November, I guess it is.
Those 3 members, right? It's fair enough. I was in.
Scott was there, yeah. It was in the fall.
So 3 members attended a tour of the park, and then we came back together and they reported on what they found. And I was asked to change certain elements of the letter to reflect their impressions of that work. Since then, of course, we've had much more rain and have seen many more impacts to the road since that tour, and several community members have raised more issues and complaints about the work that was done and what's happening now in terms of erosion. So that caused me to rethink and wanted to come back to the council to ask what is it doing now in terms of how we approach that particular element that was part of this letter. Do we want to revisit that before we send this letter? I think most of the letter remains the same. It's just that particular element of it that I need clarification on to finalize the letter.
Can you review what the current statements in the letter would be that we're going to consider dividing or denying?
I don't have drafted language because those are two different things, right? There's
some bullet points of what we said.
Well, I think in essence, you asked me to sort of soften the tone of the letter and steer away from saying that the work that was done was inappropriate in terms of some of the erosion impacts. That some of the work that they actually did was done appropriately. So I was going to remove those pieces from the letter. But now, from what I'm hearing, the things that were complained about initially seem to have come to pass. So this is the question I have.
So I may have caused this trouble, or rather Carl may have caused this trouble. Because he dragged me with my bad knee halfway up the mountain. I couldn't make it all the way. And we reviewed, and I took Boku photographs. The areas that we cleared and some of the impact of the erosion. And it appears that erosion is recurring, that the work they did to smooth out the surface of the road has already degraded. I didn't go up to the worst parts though. I did see culverts that need work. I'm told by Sean and Carl there are several more culverts that need work. And then I also have photos of, to me, it looks like unnecessary clearance of native vegetation. And I could go into detail, but it just made no sense. They cleared up there and the road's down here. So while I came away from the field trip with Scott and Claire, thinking that what the state parks people were telling us that what are those big dips called? That's a good idea.
Oh, water bars and stuff?
No, not water bars. They were saying water bars don't last. These dips, I can't remember the name. Rolling dips were more effective, and there wasn't any big deal. And the native vegetation would grow fast enough to overshadow the invasive species that we can find. I now have significant doubts that the work that was done was appropriate. I think it was too big in scope. And maybe I just have to get up to the top and see the rest. But Sean and Carl are reporting that it wasn't effective and that it should be criticized. I don't know what we do about it. That leads to we need a road maintenance plan, which even Linda Hitchcock from State Parks said. And so rather than meddle with all the details, I think that's the major recommendation. And we want that road maintenance plan publicly reviewed, peer reviewed, whatever. So that's the trouble I think that has been caused by me going up there with Carl May and reading my emails.
Well, it wasn't just that. I mean, we all did receive deployments from Carl and Sean and another commenter. So I guess I didn't know which direction to go.
But if you don't, I'm sorry.
Well, I think I agree with Greg's final conclusion here, which is we can't micromanage this project. We don't know enough and we don't have, it's not us. But I think what we had originally asked for was two things. One was that there be a master plan on the road maintenance and that it, as you described, reviewed, managed, kept an eye on, and that every effort be made to identify and use alternative paths to get to the top of the mountain, which we know exist. So I think we were going to ask for those two things rather than this bar is not a good thing and that tree shouldn't have been removed. I don't think we can go into that.
Okay. So then that makes it easier because I think the original letter can still stand, just removing the parts that are particular to the elements you just.
And if you don't do an experiment, a controlled experiment with a positive and negative control, you don't know what would happen, right? We don't know if what they did made it better or worse unless we do an experiment, right? So the work they did could have made the erosion less.
He's trying to tell me that, I told you to book me out.
But that's all I have. Well, I found one.
So do you want me to put up the original?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Do that.
If you have trouble, you can't share screen, give me a second here. You are now co-host. SBC.
So first thing at the top, these are the address to the issue with those addresses. Are there any that we should add?
Are there any we should subtract because we're not allowed to write to them?
Well, I mean, just when we write Ray, we usually copy his staff, which is at least Gina Printing. I think there was a third person, another woman. But those would be CCs.
Okay, so I can certainly do that.
I just say Ray Mueller and staff. Find out.
I added these others because they have routinely been included on some of the back and forth of the email this past year. And they were involved as part of the work.
Well, Don Matei was the guy, I think, who pulled the trigger, and then he had a fellow, there's a bit fun that I can't remember the name, who was with Don, and we were told not to contact him. And then Don Matei, I think, retired, and so I think the Department of Emergency Management, I assume that's the new manager, is fully equipped. I don't know who else, but like.
Well, this is state parks.
Oh, Linda Hitchcock.
We should be addressing the state, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I should mention that I have a meeting scheduled with Linda on Friday to follow up with her on this as well.
So I'm hearing add Linda.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So adding anything else we need to change about the addresses? No? Okay.
The rest of it is just as it was. I've changed dates. So instead of saying recently, it's now 2023 last summer. So I've added the date of 2023 various junctures in the letter. The first paragraph, I'm suggesting that we remove the part in yellow.
Motion to do that.
Well, we're not voting on the letter.
I don't think we're voting on the letter.
It's just asking since it counts.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's my thing.
The next paragraph is stated as is. I think we can give you time to read it, or if you remember from last time.
Well, I do think it's important to flag those lessees. I'm not sure how you spell it. But I think the ATC people have been a problematic tenant because we've seen some other issues raised.
Yeah. So that is mentioned first in this describes the body. So this middle part, what happened and what Johnny did is where some changes would happen. Obviously, I would remove several of these passages.
Do you mention that it was supervised by parks, state parks?
I think that it wasn't supervised necessarily by state parks. I mean, they were there among several others. They weren't the only ones. The official supervision was the county.
We're going to see concern with volume, so just wanted to make sure that we know that it's important that it's you're speaking directly into it, so it's all good. It's not much better if it's
Okay.
directly.
I'll try to do better.
It's close.
I know the mask doesn't help. So. So if there are particular things that you see in this section that you think should be removed or changed, please let me know. I was planning to reword the second paragraph to remove part of this. So then I think this third paragraph can stand as is. It points to several reference resources. And I think the part about excessive shoulder clearing, I was planning to remove.
Well, why were you going to remove it? Because the shoulder clearing was excessive, although you could question the tone of there seems to have been no thought given to the spread of invasive species. Because I don't know if you know that there was no thought given. I think there was some thought given, but it's clear that the shoulder clearing to me was excessive.
Well, and I'm not stating my personal opinions here. I'm reacting to what I was told previously about how to change this letter. And so the state parks seems to feel that was not excessive. And I got the impression from our last meeting that you wanted me not to include that. So these are the things I want clarification on.
We finished without for the three of us. I think we were under the impression that what they did was I don't even know whether the word okay to be offensive to anybody, but we understood what their idea was in clearing this clearing on size. We understood why they did it and how it would go back. And there wouldn't be damage to the environment that we thought was going to happen. That was articulated. I believe that became the thing.
So then what you're saying is to maybe articulate the intention and then contrast it with what we currently see. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes. But we understand that. Well, I don't even know how to word it. We understood they had good intentions.
They made a good faith effort to do it.
Right. But upon further investigation, as the year went on, we saw that what happened was not what they expected. Somehow, something, you know.
Okay.
And yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. That's more clear. So that would fundamentally change this paragraph. I think the rest of this, obviously I would modify this to reflect that as well. But I think the rest of it still stands in terms of the solutions we want to ask for. So I guess that's my next question. This last part of the letter, I would prefer to leave as is with very minor changes. This is where it mentions American Tower. And I understand that American Tower has recently completed more work on their parcel. So I'm inclined to leave that part as it is.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, the goal is to have a management plan for the road that we can observe, we can look at, be part of. And someday find a different route to talk about for that time. And as a note, at the end of our discussion with the parks people, I think they said, hey, at some point we would like to have that removed. We'd like to see the tower there. I don't know if that's possible.
Okay. So that would be these two paragraphs. And then the closing paragraph, which emphasizes conservation. I think that clarifies it, and I'm sorry, I thought I went here before and I was here, but then we got all the comments and there seemed to be some discrepancies, and so I didn't want to show up with a letter that went one way and then had to go back here. So, I guess, we could go ahead and go to public comment and see if the public has any suggestion that they'd like.
Okay, great. So we're opening it to public comments. Anything anyone wants to say specific to this letter, and we'll start with Carl since he's here in person.
Of course, I thought about showing up tonight, stacked of textbooks on widespread college courses on conservation, ecology, conservation biology, plant ecology, and even basic plant physiology, animal diversity in areas of plant diversity, and so forth. I boiled it down one little book that's actually a primer instead of a long course text. This is by Karen Hall of UC Santa Cruz, who has 3 decades of experience in what is now called ecological restoration. Restoration ecology is an entire society that has a journal, and there are many other journals that are involved with restoration ecology. The basics, because it's a primer, the basics discussed in here were totally ignored in the planning for this road project. They're totally ignored in the clearing of the vegetation on the sides of the road. This is done without any overview in the natural sciences. So that's one point to be made, that this is not, no matter what they're telling you, and the guy who said the only concern was Montero Manzanita, what they're telling you is an attempt to get over on you about what was actually done. And in a natural, in what is mostly a natural area. The other part, I consider this to be two-part problem. One, the clearing of the roadsides, vegetation on the roadsides, and the other, the grading of the road itself. The grading of the road itself was done in ignorance, and it didn't need to be done in ignorance. This road has been maintained repeatedly, certainly ever since the park was over, but actually before the state parks actually even bought the property. And the long time, many decade experience on that road is that it erodes in the same way with any heavy rains. And they went up there in this plan, this emergency plan, that exempted any environmental review because it was an emergency. They went up there with this emergency plan in seemingly total ignorance of what had been done for decades in project after project maintaining that road. Now, there's no good answer to how to maintain that road. It's a crappy road, was built a crappy way, but it exists. And apparently the right of way is set in stone to the top of that mountain on this road. But there are methods of dealing with the road that are better than others. And those methods were not used at all. This was a waste total waste of taxpayer money. This grading of the road. The condition of that road right now, and this is why I keep, those of you who have been bombarded with my emails, I keep trying to get people up there. It's as bad or worse than it has ever been after this last year's road project. And this hasn't so far been the worst winter by any means on that road. This was all predictable and doing what they did was foolish. Now, having stated all of that, I don't think we should be going after people. I think we should be going after the process that led to this mistake, this near total fail on the road. And these rolling dips, which the man who I think was a botanist or something for the district, state park district, with some of the was talking about. By the way, he violates all kinds of botanical principles and so forth. But talking about rolling dips and so forth, and how this was a better method than lots of good water bars and so on. Those rolling dips were essentially loose material built up into little mounds across the road, and from one particularly steep place that erodes out into deep ruts every single winter. Those rolling dips were put in with the first moderate rain, not heavy rain, the first moderate rain coming the last fall. Two of those rolling dips failed completely. The gully went right through the middle. The third one directed water in such a way that it created an additional erosion problem. Farther on up the hill, there are attempts, once you get up into sort of the coastal maritime chaparral habitat, there are several of these rolling dip types things that are also a fail. In a number of other places, the redirected water on that road has created new ruts. Now, they're not horrible yet, but they're horrible to a person who's not a skilled four-wheel drive vehicle driver. And so the road's as bad as it's ever been after rains, and it's bad after it's rain. But they've created a few new problems. The vegetation speaks for itself. This cries for an expert like Karen Hall, somebody like that, to be consulted before any kind of clearing of natural vegetation on the side of the road is done. It's just, so I think that should be the goal, to get future road projects done with some sense about what exists up there, the long-term history of it. I was predicting these things, and it only took one little field trip up there with a couple of state parks people who were quite obviously not entirely familiar with the road or what had been done in the past, to overwhelm, my more than 3 decades experience on that road. And not my 3 decades, Sean with 2 decades experience, and any number of other people who've been up there repeatedly one winter after another. So I agree that what we need is a sensible maintenance program for that road that uses the best of what we know is possible. And that involves getting water off the surface of the road as quickly as possible and not channels the way they have, and not just pushing loose sand and gravel into the ruts and then doing finally the cleanup pass so it's like a nice smooth road until the first time it rains. Not pulling in berms from the side, damaging the sides of the road, pulling material onto the road, which is supposed to help stabilize the road. That material pulled in from the side of the road just instantly. This isn't something that's theory or hypothesis or anything like that. It's something that exists from the beginning. So I think Scott initially got going on alternate routes. I think that needs to be heavily explored for an answer to this, and that this not be an emergency necessity and be made into in the third possible route back, and rather than the first. So I won't say much more at this time. That's what I've got to say. Thank you.
It's fine.
Do we have anybody from the audience? I can see that. Yeah, go.
Can we anticipate another emergency repair of this road after the storm? It's gonna happen this week. And should we have a plan if they send out an email to you? Hey, we're gonna do this, because that's what they did last time.
Scott, people are saying they can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. What I was saying was, do we anticipate getting another emergency repair this winter? And if we do, what would our response be?
Great question.
Well, it's state parks, right? I would say, yes, there's probably some damage. You're asking, the county, once you.
That came to us through Greg. Greg got an email last year saying, hey, we plan on doing this. We're telling you. And should we anticipate that again? And should we have a response ready in that case?
When they reached out, the issue was, would we support their doing away with that?
It was very fast.
Yeah.
We didn't really have time to digest.
The language was, the guy who called me said, Don Matei wants me to treat this as though the top of Montana Mountain is on fire.
Yeah, they didn't really give us much.
So I caved. I confess.
Well, the sums of the council sounds to me as though we would not like anything to be done without careful planning. And we can always say that whether they say it's an emergency or not.
Yes, I mean, I don't think we have the power to veto anything, but I think we could say, given last year's experience,
Yes.
we would want a publicly reviewed plan before you go do something.
Okay.
I think that.
You have it, you have to give them.
Oh, it's Burnett. Sure. Anybody else? Right, from the council. Burnett.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you guys. It's very difficult to hear you guys. You got to get about 6 inches away from those mics to work. Even Dan talking a few minutes ago, I couldn't understand half of what he was saying. When Scott got close to the mics, we could hear. So if you please could be conscious of that, get those mics closer. I don't know why they're not working well here the last couple of meetings, but it's really difficult to hear what you guys are saying. Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt what's going on, but it's just I'm missing half of it.
Point of information, I've been chatting with PCTV here, and they say next time they're going to bring their own mixer and mics.
Love you guys. Okay. Okay, great. Then I think that's the end of public comment, which means I think we move on to the next.
Well, just to wrap it up, I would like to bring this back to the council at the next meeting in which we would vote for the final letter. So maybe it would be on consent or.
Could some of us get a chance to read it at leisure and suggest edits?
Yes, we will have it well before.
No, I'm just thinking if you'll share it with me, so I get it out of the way before you even finish drafting it.
Then you need more than only 3 people.
Yes.
Well, who are the people that are working with Kim?
Or Scott and the chair.
Is that still okay?
It's fine.
I think it has to be.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
If you want to edit it.
Okay, fine. So I just welcome the opportunity to take a deep.
I'll look at it as soon as you
Take a
send
deep breath over coffee and donuts and, I've said my thoughts before you go to the trouble of the air.
And I'd suggest, maybe, I don't know, consulting with Lisa, but as far as the addressees, I don't know, but there may be somebody that it's not like it's something, I'm just not sure.
the addressees reflect who was involved in the actual maintenance work. So all of those had a part in the maintenance.
Okay.
Okay, so then the takeaway is we will vote on this. Great, awesome. Then on we go to everybody's favorite topic, Cypress Point. Anne is going to lead us into discussion and just to set the table for this. We want to narrowly focus the discussion on the issue specifically that project is going to be exempted from the usual CEQA process, and kind of how does that impact what we want to say or our strategy in figuring out how we deal with this thing. So rather than get deep into the weeds of all the things that we hate about the project, this is a discussion just about this process point about how it's going to be exempted from SIPA stuff. But with that, Anne, please take it away.
Hey, let's see. I haven't done this before, so let me see if I can share my screen. Let's see.
It's working.
All right. Now I just have to get into trying to find slideshow. All right. Here we go. So this is the author, David Alvarez. And what I thought was really important is what I highlighted, because it really tells you what the goal is by making CEQA exemptions for affordable housing. So I'll just read it real quick, but I think it's important because I think this really does reflect the Cypress Point. It doesn't necessarily fit into what I think their thought process was regarding exempting certain affordable housing projects. But anyway, 100% affordable housing developments are critical to helping the state reach its climate goals and to affirmatively further fair housing. By its nature and as a result of state and local funding priorities, affordable housing is higher density and built on location-efficient sites close to services and amenities its residents need. The funding programs also prioritize housing in high resource areas, which have been shown by research to support positive economic, educational, and health outcomes to low-income families, particularly for families with children. And it says projects will still be required to receive local approval. So I kind of skipped a little bit of page 1 because I don't think there was much in there to add. But if we go to page 2, you could see that one thing that stood out to me, it says it gives you a definition of the affordable housing project. And it also says that at least 2/3 of the square footage of the project design, it has to be for residential use. But the part that I found particularly interesting says, and that satisfies all of the following requirements. And if you just take section 3, for example, I think it's C3, and you're looking at what they consider amenities, it says you have to be within 1/2 mile of a bus station or a ferry terminal. Well, there is none of that there. It has to be within 1 mile of a grocery store, public park, community center. And then there's also pharmacy or drugstore, medical clinic or hospital. We do have an ER, but it has very limited service and it's not really a medical clinic. And also there's no public library. And then I also noted that a school that maintains, and I interpret this to mean either a kindergarten through 12 or 1 through 12 inclusive. So I would like some clarification on that, because if that's the case, it also does not qualify. And then even just the location, Fairlawn View, is 1.4 miles to be exact from the site proposed. So it doesn't really meet any of those requirements. And then I think also another one that was important, it says that it has to be within a 1/2 mile distance to either a high quality transit corridor or a major transit stop. That does not exist. In a very low vehicle travel area, that's not what this is either. And then, let's see. I think it's the next, I'm sorry, I think it's the next page. Oh, let me make sure I get you to the right one there. And it says none of the housing is located within 500 feet of a freeway. Well, it is, because Highway 1 is within 500 feet of this development, and highway is a synonym for freeway. So if you want to get particular about it, that is something that also doesn't meet the standard. I think it was important when you looked at the EIR originally that they are completely unable to mitigate the impacts from the traffic. First of all, you have the proposed project. This is what they tell you you have to be able to make sure that it will not, in combination with past, present, and reasonably foreseeable future projects, result in a cumulatively considerable transportation impact related to VMT and consistency with state CEQA guidelines. And so I know they're saying you don't have to meet that now. However, I mean, these traffic problems cannot be mitigated, and it was shown in your EIR to be a safety hazard for both the residents who live there and future residents. And there is, it says right there, if you look at transportation impact related to hazards, it's something they cannot mitigate. And I think it's really important that if in fact they are allowed to get away with this, that I think at a very minimum, we need to ask for all of the road improvements to be made first before anything be built. And they have to see, will those road improvements, first of all, be funded? Because right now there is no funding. And if you look at the alternative section of the EIR, if you look at the no project section, it basically says that the constraints at the project site and immediate road network would remain unchanged. Under the general plan zoning of medium high density residential, the project site could ultimately, it says, accommodate up to 191 residents. That's what they're saying, but that's not really true. And I think the most important thing is they're saying that the road problems that exist now are not going to be fixed whether you build this or not. So I don't know how they justify it. And then these are just some definitions I wanted to say about the freeway, also a supermarket. I think there's a big difference between it. If you just do Google searches, you can see that the requirements really aren't met. There is no convenience store within a mile. I was going to say, I'm sorry, there's no supermarket within a mile. There's a convenience store. The bus station is, if you just by definition, it's larger than a bus stop, which is a place on the roadside that buses can stop. And then even here, it's just, I wanted to go through definitions. And also to mention that there was at Seton Medical Center at 6:30 a.m., we all got an alert from our supervisor Mueller that the emergency room had to close down because the power was out. I think that's really important because you're saying that you cannot support the residents that are here, and you certainly can't support any new residents with the ER that we have every time there's a power outage, and that's quite a concern. Now, more importantly, and this is what the residents know, is that we already have hazards in the neighborhood. Just looking at the parking, this is a photograph at Stetson Street in California, and you can see the fire truck trying to make the turn onto Stetson Street to return back to the fire station, which is going to remain in the same location. Even though they are going to have a new station, they will still have the exact same location. So the hazards are still there, that they will not be able to respond to calls in a timely manner if there are more cars parked. And it's already a challenge for them that they have to deal with. So that's something that I think is really very concerning. And like this, what's mentioned here, it says the traffic heading up the hill struggles for traction, which is very true. Anyone who's ever traveled this road knows that stop sign is really, really difficult. Trying to have any car stay on the road when it's wet at that stop sign, at that angle, it's really concerning. Most people just do kind of a brief stop and go, but it's definitely a dangerous intersection. And with more cars on it, I can't imagine what's going to happen. This was a picture I took a long time ago. This is on Kelmore Street. And I wanted to show people, this is how narrow the road is. Now that is just one side of the street parked on. The other side isn't even parked on. And you can see that the garbage truck barely even fits on the road. I want to know how, when cars are parked on both sides of the street, how is a fire truck supposed to get down? How are people supposed to drive down the street? I think that is a real concern. This is on Carlos Street. And you can also see there's blind turns. There's very little room for any cars. And then this is Moonridge. And you can see what it looks like when they have overflow parking. This is what you should expect in Cypress, at Cypress Point, this is something we could very well see. And you can see there's people's work vehicles. If they end up on the side streets around this project, I mean, it's going to be quite a hazard. And I think for anybody who doesn't live in the area, they might not understand that. I think a lot of housing advocates just come out and say, well, we want affordable housing wherever you can have it. But it needs to be safe for everybody. It needs to be safe for the residents of the housing. It needs to be safe for the community. And I'm very concerned about what will happen. And as are many people, I think, because we're seeing projects be approved without any of the road improvements being made. You see that at Big Wave. They're going to start the building without making any road improvements. There's no commitment from Caltrans to even fund any of these, proposed road improvements. So to have this project go in without anything being done, it's very concerning and it's very dangerous. So I'm really open to hear what the public has to say, what the focus of our letter should be. But I really feel that the intent of not having the CEQA approval was because they expected these developments to be in areas that can service the residents, and particularly through public transportation and other methods. And we don't have that. One of the requirements also was that buses were supposed to come every 15 minutes at high traffic times, at peak traffic times. Well, that's not going to happen. That has never happened. There's not even a bench to sit on in some of the bus stop locations. And there's no sidewalks for anyone to even walk to a bus stop. So I think there's just a lot of concerns. And so I'm looking forward to opening this up and seeing what everyone would like to have included in our letter and whatever presentation we'll be able to make.
Okay. I want to just start by saying I love the way you sort of laid out the specific requirements in the statute. And I think our letter should probably have a section that addresses that, right? That's in order to qualify under AB 1449, here are a bunch of the different requirements. And here are the specific reasons why this project doesn't meet those requirements. I think that'd be great. Scott.
So is the requirements in AB 49 a law?
AB 1449 is law.
That's a law. If they don't meet those requirements, they're breaking the law, right?
That would be my contention.
Okay. What is the recourse? Do you just immediately sue them? Or do you, what do you do? Talk to the Attorney General and say, this law is being broken. How do we resolve this? Why don't we just go straight to the Attorney General?
Rob Bonta.
Whoever he might be. Go straight to him.
Yeah, I'll be based.
Okay. Well, do we?
But it's an interesting. But I don't know.
Why wouldn't you do that? That's the way to stop it, because they're breaking. They need to meet all these requirements. It's a law. You just told me it was a law. They're breaking them.
Yes. So the question of who is going to sue them to get them to follow the laws and questions.
I think, Claire, you want to speak to this because you have an email here.
Oh, do you want me to?
Yeah, I think you ought to cover what the county's position is.
Sure, let me bring that up here. Hold on.
I can read it if you want.
Oh, do you have it?
Yeah, you forwarded it to
I sent
us.
it to everybody, yeah. If you'd like to go ahead and read it.
It said, this is the county attorney's interpretation of the law limiting environmental review of the housing of affordable housing. Seems pretty clear. Tim Fox writes, Claire, the planning department has been advised by our office, meaning Tim Fox's office, that the effect of a statutory exemption from CEQA is that CEQA simply doesn't apply to the project. All further actions with regard to the project are no longer subject to any provisions of CEQA if the project meets the necessary elements of an affordable housing project within the meaning of the new statute.
Which is what we're questioning.
Even if the statute's effective date was the same as the day on which the fully completed project with a complete IIR was put before a decision maker for a vote, it would still be exempt from CEQA because exemption is a binary question. Hope this clarifies. So, Claire, I don't know what you wanted to say, but Claire brought this up, but it just.
Well, I knew this would come up, so I wanted to get some sort of definitive opinion, and that was a definitive opinion for the county. And the key thing that you just read there was if the project qualifies under the provisions of the statute, and from what Ann's saying, it doesn't.
Yes, and then the question comes, what happens if the county says, but it does? Then the question.
Well, so point of information.
Yeah.
We also have 3 or 4 letters. I don't believe any of them asked us to read it, but they all objected to bypassing CEQA and to what the county's doing. One of them, which I wish I could find, took a sharp scalpel to the claims of the county on some of the provisions, including whether 75% of the lot was bordered appropriately. It seems that in every instance, the county is taking an area that could be gray and flipping it in the direction they want. And there's a half a dozen instances of that, including the lot boundary. But overriding it is that our county council, which presumably is fully aware, maybe an action item is to take all these nits that we have and send them to Tim Fox again and saying, did you consider all of these things in reaching your ruling? I don't know. That's one thought.
He didn't actually say that it applied to this project. He said, if it applies to this project, here's the position.
No, he said CEQA doesn't apply.
Yeah, CEQA doesn't apply if this project fits the criteria.
Right. And so the question could be to county council. Here are the concerns that have been raised by council members and residents, and there's a half a dozen of them. Has your office reviewed and considered all of these things, and have you ruled in every case,
So what I'm hearing is.
That's just a thought.
Different letter.
That's just a
There's
thought.
a letter specifically to him saying, here are the reasons why we think this doesn't fit what you think. What's your response?
Just a thought. I don't know if Tim did the work. I don't know who did the work. Clearly somebody put in a lot of time.
Well, I'm sorry. When I read that email from you, Claire, and my takeaway was it doesn't because I say it doesn't. He says it doesn't meet it because I say so. With nothing else.
That's the lawyers.
So and it just went around and around in a circle.
And could you stop sharing your screen?
So the Attorney General. You break them.
Bond is not going to take Bond is but
So I think there's another aspect to this that is really important in that, we should raise this and point these things out. Not because necessarily we will win in this instance, but because this law will come up for renewal at some point, 2033. It's a while, but they will probably at that point want to continue the law if it's viewed as successful. And to document areas where it was not a success will be very important to prevent it from being removed or to have it be altered so that it can foster more effective types of development.
okay, so we either end up having to take it. Right.
I see him.
I'm gonna call and sit in a second, but just before we go to public comment, just we as a council, do we, as a sense that this is a step we need to take to send.
So the subject of this letter is questioning the CEQA exemption, questioning the validity of the CEQA exemption. So nothing to do with all the other concerns about the project. Okay.
No, yes, we are concerned this project does not meet the conditions set forth in 1449 to justify an exemption from this process.
So I agree with that, but I'm suggesting that there would be another letter as well.
Yes.
That would follow the input from Tim, whatever he says. That would then go to we have the relevant Indian law to sort of be on record, our activity on this, so that we can come back later and point to whatever failures might happen. Okay.
With that one, we wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't be involved in. Who else wants?
I'd like to. Maybe Ann, since
I
she's.
think Ann has to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would definitely want to be involved in the letter because I was supposed to be initially.
And I hate to be excluded from this, but I understand the Brown Act. I would just point to you to find that letter that I saw today, where they looked at the plot line boundaries and raised those questions.
Yes,
That's a very important letter to consider the draft.
All right, daily council stuff. Right.
Would you consider the media? The CCing a newspaper?
Well, I want to see what Tim says. But
Okay.
but writing an op-ed to or something, it's also stuff we can take. Okay. Yes, but
Are we authorized to write this letter to Tim Fox without coming back to the council with it? Can we put it together and send it to him? Because time is of the essence.
That's an interesting question. Well, we're about to probably expect them to be soon anyway, right?
Well, it's going to be after everything's come out.
Well, I was going to say, we need to have a letter for the planning department for the planning meeting itself. That has to get done. And if I don't know if there's a way for the MCC to even be able to present, but it would be nice if there was a way for us to present to the planning department more than just your 1 minute to 2 minute comments, because they take what even starts a 5 minute comment, these things, when they say, oh, there's so many people that show up, then you get a 1 minute comment. And what's even worse is that you have the housing advocates. There's these groups, they just wait for these meetings, and then you'll see one after another will tell you stories as to why people need the housing. They just want the housing. And it has nothing to do with the planning. It has nothing to do with this exemption. It'll just be these people saying we want housing, and then they get overwhelmed. And then I think they do that on purpose so that they're not listening. And it's a shame, because this has happened at every meeting I've attended when it comes to this subject, and especially at the Board of Supervisors. I mean, it's going to be really difficult. They want this to happen. And the problem is that people are going to be impacted in ways that it could be so detrimental. I mean, if the fire company cannot get to people in time, especially if someone's having a heart attack or a stroke, they're going to die, even if there's a bad traffic accident or fire. I mean, this affects everyone. It doesn't just affect the people in the neighborhood, it affects everyone. You know, response times if you could just see the overflow traffic, you can see what could happen. And even for the people just trying to walk, if you don't make road improvements, there's not even sidewalks for people to walk on. I mean, it's extraordinarily dangerous. Imagine somebody walking down Cypress, or I'm sorry, Carlos. I mean, imagine somebody walking down there with all those blind turns and all these cars streaming out of the development. I mean, it's frightening. The thought of that is to me, I can't imagine that anyone wouldn't be concerned, but they're not. This is all about RENA numbers. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about the end. The worst is this is just the beginning. This is going to be in every community throughout the coast. You just wait and see. This is, they see this. And so if they're allowed to get away with it, if they just get ahead and say, okay, well, no more CEQA, they're just going to start developing the entire coast. And that's my greatest concern. And everybody should be concerned, whether it's in your neighborhood or not.
Okay, Greg, you want to make a process?
Procedural, you noted earlier that the meeting that they're going to hold is on the same day as an MCC meeting. So when we think about future agendas and these letters, I think we're going to have to consider moving the MCC meeting that we would normally have anyway, so that we can attend the meeting that they're scheduling.
But
that meeting's going to be
6
p.m.
6 p.m.
And didn't she say it was for an hour?
I don't recall.
I thought she said that, but maybe I was wrong.
It's not sure.
Yeah. I think, can I say something?
Yeah.
That we originally, what we wanted to say in our letter was a response to their answers to the questions that we already submitted with the secret process. We may or may not get some answers. I thought we were mostly going to respond to those and say what concerns we still had from our original concerns. I still think that's probably a pretty good plan. But the thing with Tim Fox is separate. Since I already have a correspondence with him on this, I could just follow up if you want. If not, if the three of us want to work on it, I think that's great too. But I think it should be done like this week.
So I motion that we allow the work group to proceed forward with a letter without MCC full council review. Can I do that? Will that fix it?
The only thing the letter is going to say is, here are the provisions of the law that we don't think is being met.
So you're saying we authorize Claire
Yes.
to just list the things that we think.
Okay.
AB 1449 fails.
I'd like Ann to help me.
So we authorize
Yes.
Claire, you know, the council.
I'm happy
Do we need to vote on that or anything? Can we just let it go? We're done with it.
I think you're delegating the task when we often submit comments.
We often submit comments to planning based on the initiative of the group that reviews the plans, which is led by Claire.
With Ann as well.
Right.
Yeah, I'm good. But yeah,
Then do it.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, well, then do that.
okay.
We need to vote on it, we need to vote on it, we want to just delegate. So,
It wouldn't hurt to vote on it.
okay, we want to just the cover, sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, all right, so.
Let it rip,
We
man.
have public comments still to be
Yes,
heard.
yes, but yes, after we deal with public comment.
Oh.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
Sid.
And I think you did a really good job. And if you do write a letter, I think you should just bullet point out every single item that law says needs to be provided that we don't have. Number one, school buses. And of course, number two, or maybe number one, the fact that Highway 1 Moss Beach corridor won't be completed till 2030 and it's currently unfunded. And then, of course, the fact that the school buses don't exist. And there, I know you can go on, but there's no big stores. There's hardly any good public transportation, et cetera. But whatever, I think you should bullet point it out if you can in your letter.
Thanks, Sid.
Thank you.
Steve.
Yes, hi, thanks. I just want to make sure I understand the concern that was stated here in the beginning. Now, I'm all for affordable housing, but I'm also a big booster of the LCP and the carrying capacity requirements or limitations that it contains. 25 years ago, I was on this so-called task force Supervisor Gordon set up to set up our design review standards. And one thing I was trying to do was bring down the floor area ratio requirements to limit them small because our housing stock was so big. And, we were competing against builders who were trying to keep the floor area ratios, FAR, high. And it was kind of a crappy compromise. And so they're still kind of high now. And then there's this garage exception. It's awful. And so the housing stock on the coast is way too big. Every house gets built maxed out to the floor area ratio. So it's a real problem. Affordable housing is good, but that doesn't mean we have to suffer because of it. There's still the LCP that we can rely on. Now, one thing I want to try to understand, we're trying to understand whether this exempts CEQA or not. And so I think, Ann, you read through these things here. I'm looking at the legal document from ca.gov, and it says I think you're reading through section 1.1, and it said it's got to satisfy all these requirements, A, B, C, and D. I think there's 4 requirements. Is that correct so far? A, B, C, and D. It's got to satisfy those. Is that right?
Well, that's the thing that I'm not sure. It says it has to satisfy all of the following requirements.
And the requirements are A, B, C, and D. Those are the 4 requirements.
Yeah, it seems it looks like A, B, C, and D, and then there's another A, B.
No, those are subsections of section 3 defining proximal, for example. Now, if A, B, and B don't seem a problem. You read through C. I think you were reading through C. I didn't actually have this in front of me, and you're reading through it. But it says for section 1C, it says any of the following locations. So it's the Roman numeral 1, lowercase Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so if any one of these is satisfied, you can ignore the others. Is the way I read this. So section 1 says it's within the urban rural boundary, basically is what it says. And I think that sounds like it's within the urban rural boundary to me of Moss Beach. And that, if that's true, if we agree that that's satisfied, and you can disagree, you can contest that, but that means that 2, 3, and 4 are academic. Forget about the half mile to transit, forget about low vehicle traffic area, forget about proximity to amenities. It's academic. And I just want to make sure that that's the understanding here. I'm not advocating for avoiding CEQA. I think CEQA is a great thing, and I don't see why you need to avoid CEQA. They did do a DRR, which I read through last night, and they identified a lot of the issues which could be used to go against the LCP. But I want to make sure that we're not overstepping here, and that we're all in agreement that C sub 1 is satisfied, and so 2, 3, and 4 are academic. And if that's true, then D, I heard somebody saying somebody's contesting D about the 75% perimeter, and that's kind of a technicality thing. But it kind of looked like from a first approximation that was kind of satisfied just from the project map. And if it's not, it's going to be a highly technical thing, I think. But I think it comes down to C. Well, I don't know which one. It comes down to C sub 1.
Well, that can be.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think I
Mm-hmm.
agree with you. I think it's difficult. I think this is something that a lawyer needs to look at, right? I mean, anything is contestable. And I think that part of it too is they have so many parameters in there that the project is supposed to meet. And the fact that this doesn't, I'm just saying the intent. And if you look at the intent of the bill, and even under the author's fact sheet, it really says that they're supposed to have amenities, they're supposed to have things for the residents, and this doesn't meet it in any way. And so I think it's something, you can argue anything if you want to.
Section C says you don't need to meet those amenities. That's
then why
amenities are
does
section C4.
Let me just jump in. Hey, let me just jump in here. I don't want to get too into the back and forth on it. I think we are talking about submitting something to Tim to clarify these issues, right? So I think we've identified an issue that needs to be clarified, whether you only have to meet one of these things in the checklist or all the things in the checklist. So let's ask that to Tim's the lawyer. Let's ask him.
That's a great idea. I like that.
And then go from there. So, okay. Awesome. But thank you, Steve.
Sounds very good. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah. Okay. And I see Dolores.
Hello. Thank you. This has been a very good discussion. And we have been looking into this for a while for Midcoast Eco. And it is complicated. I mean, I think, as you all know, that we filed suit 2 years ago or longer regarding the amendment to the LCP because they bypassed looking at the foreseeable impacts of this project. And we're still in litigation. We don't know when we'll be heard in court, but we were concerned all along that the county and Midpen were trying to get away from having the Coastal Commission review from the Coastal Act perspective what the impacts of this project would be. And here we are. This is what they're trying to do. But as far as this law goes, I mean, it's a new law, so there's not any precedence that we can look at it other than looking at other projects who have somehow gotten a CEQA exemption. And we're considering that as an angle to pursue. But fundamentally, the big concern here is just like this project from the beginning has really exaggerated the amenities and downplayed the issues because they really want to build affordable housing. And we all understand that need. But there's a real public safety issue. And I think I just don't see how the county can, in good conscience, pursue this, knowing that these public safety issues are as big as they are. And I guess that's the question we need to ask them, because it endangers not just those of us who live in the neighborhood or the new residents, but anybody who's on the highway. it's going to be very problematic, and for it to be built before mitigations are in place is really irresponsible. So hopefully we can get that across. I mean, there's enough studies out there that they know this is true. So we'll see, but I think that the county has so much pressure about housing that if they can, they will build us at whatever time they, however they see fit. And as for the questions about whether it's moved or not, I believe that there's more to study here, and we're certainly looking into that. But this has been a good conversation, and I hope we can continue disputing some of these points that they make. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dolores.
Oh, I do want to mention a couple of other things. They continue to use the outdated maps for fire in particular. And that's again irresponsible. I mean, there's been talk quite a bit today about fire concerns and evacuation. And I'm not exactly sure why they do this, but they are not using the most current fire hazard maps that we've pointed out, and I think you have pointed out in our previous DEIR comments. Just another little infrastructure issue that I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores. Any other public comments? Oh, Carl.
So I want to encourage the letter as it's been laid out between Anne, Claire, and is there a third person in here? Yeah, okay. I want to encourage that letter to include all of the individual points that Anne brought up. Whether or not there might be other parts of the statute that argue against maybe the application of some of those points. Bring them all up. And all of this, if this gets to a lawsuit, there's a matter of having standing in a lawsuit. And a lot of times in lawsuits, you can only sue on what's been said and what's been done. And so the more of these concerns that are in there, the better off those of us who will probably end up donating money. Dolores can attest to my occasional donations to Midcoast Eco. But those of us will at least have something to base our donations on. I just want to mention that this is a result of our initial LCP for the coast. And there were 3 of these areas set aside. One was the one that's in question. The other one is at the south end of Moss Beach. They've got quite a bit of momentum behind it at one time, and then fell into a period where funding and so forth would be very difficult, and it went by the wayside. We'll be hearing about that again, I'm sure. The third one is right at the north end of Elder. And so those were the 3 that were put in here. When that LCP was done, there were no local coastal people who lived here, people who would be affected by these, that had much of a voice in the LCP. And we had some very good county environmentalists that had quite a say in the LCP, but none of them lived here. None of them were sensitive to very local issues. And that's why we've ended up with these 3 areas, all of which are problems. We're an overpopulated state. Anything that's built that is not sustainable can only cause more problems. We're into all kinds of individual problems. The other thing I would mention is that we are in a heavy anti-regulatory atmosphere nationally and statewide. And we hear about some of the getting zinkied and so forth during Trump's administration. Anything anti-regulation during Trump's 4 years was cheered on by a certain element of society. But we have anti-regulation coming from the hardline Democrats now. And it's very often associated with these social issues. And they don't, these regulations that are in place, which are inadequate in themselves, are get in the way of feel-good projects by people who don't live in those places and who are not considering the damage that's done to the neighborhoods and the people who are already living there. The damage to our lives, our little daily lives we putter around with, is done by some of these things, some of these projects. And that hurts me no end. You know, it's unbalanced, this anti-regulatory environment that we've got. And
Really, I don't feel that I am as informed of this particular project beside this. I live in Oklahoma, and this is really my first.
Welcome.
So thank you for letting me speak. The point of wonderment I would offer to everyone is
I'm sorry to bother you. Can you please speak into the microphone? We cannot hear.
thank you. Thank you. Is that better? Okay.
Much better.
So, my wonderment is, and I understand if you're in the immediate neighborhood, I see streets all over El Granada, Moss Beach, places that are really dense with cars because we are a densely populated area. But the one thing that I worry about is that we think if we build housing, we have more people moving in. I believe that we have so many places and homes and apartments that are densely populated. And it's not just landlords leasing, but we have people that are subleasing. Literally, you have people renting a bed in a bedroom with multiple families living in households. And that is what this type of housing alleviates. And so it's a much more complex problem than simply we don't want to build housing or we want to build housing. I just wanted to say in terms of traffic, I think on and off Highway 1 in any neighborhood, our cars are already moving around on a regular basis. This isn't going to bring people in. I see it as a relief valve, and only one relief valve is probably needed. Thanks.
Any other public comment? No. Okay, so
Closing public comment.
closing public comment. Okay, so our action items for this. Claire and work on responding to Tim. And we are waiting for the planning commission's planning department's report to come out. And that's when we will do our response to that report and articulate our continuing concerns with this project. Correct? That someone was.
I think we can expect the report to be out by Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Yeah, a week from now, right? So that's the
7th, I think you said.
Yeah, and that's which is the latest day they will allow to do it in the first place. So as predicted, it will not come out earlier than that. Okay.
So we'll probably need a special meeting.
So we're gonna end up needing the special meeting. I think we will deal with that when we get to the future business, right? Okay, so that gets us.
We should vote on the assembly letter. No.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is, I think.
Okay, right. So we go.
So I moved and we authorized Claire and so
To document concerns about the CEQA issues to Tim Fox. I'll second that.
Great. Okay. Ann, you want to call the poll?
Sorry, I need to unmute. All right. Gus,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Kimberly,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
and Dan,
yes.
and me, yes.
All right. So now, the two things we still have to talk about tonight are managing the priorities and dealing with what we pulled from the consent agenda. So the next thing theoretically is managing the priorities, but we just quickly vote to, I feel like we should definitely deal with the school thing tonight. And if it goes later, we left time, I'd be okay with bumping it by the next meeting. But I think we should absolutely deal with the school.
So is the public going to object to that?
Well, I mean, all it would mean is for right now, all it would mean is a motion to just talk about these things in rehearsal. There are two things still to talk about tonight. Okay. We'll be talking about them.
Right, so I move that we discuss the Cabrillo Unified School District Elder School remodel letter at this time and postpone the Midcoast priorities with later. Sure, second that.
Later this evening?
Fine.
Okay.
TBD. Hopefully today. Okay, great. So we have a motion in a second, and or do we need to make that?
I don't see any public comment problems.
Just changing the agenda.
Right.
Great. Okay, and you want to call the roll?
Sure. Greg,
Yes.
Kimberly,
Yes.
Gus,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
and me, yes.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to talk about is the school letter. Dan, you asked to pull it.
Yes.
Can you lead us in
I
that?
got a speaker requested.
Yep.
I believe, but
Sure, yeah.
there's a little, they like, support the, item 2D as is, so.
Okay. Okay.
But as far as, yes, the board clause, I just saw it tonight. I missed it. We had a discussion, you know, it was my understanding that you were gonna kind of let me know, like, we left, this issue is left, that you were gonna contact Camille and, basically supply. Did you get a response from Camille? And why wasn't that shared?
That was shared. We didn't have a text. Here, I got a response from Camille and I said that to somebody, which was on. Right.
I think I saw something where she said she would welcome a letter from us and she wanted it soon. Did I hear that?
Yes, that was a big test, and it's that, I just don't, like I said before, I don't understand the view. Right away. Number one, you know, we were very clear in the first paragraph, our first way. Number two, you know, part of this is initiated because for some reason, school district brought up that you were going to delay their project. No, they have full control of their project, and I just don't see why. You know, is this letter that was written here, is this coming from you or you or somebody else in the council?
We asked her, does she read it? And she said, yeah, I didn't write it. That's why. I'm not disputing your point about like we were clear in the first one, but she, for her process, for whatever reason.
Yeah, but that's important. That's the important part that I'm not clear on. What reason?
She wants it.
Wait a minute.
Oh, does I say so? That's not good enough.
Point of information here.
Yes.
So I also have been in touch with people at CUSD who have this valid concern that they don't want their project delayed. They don't want the firm bid contracts to blow up and a huge cost increase, et cetera, et cetera. They got to get started in May. I don't know if you remember the last meeting, they were hoping we would send something last meeting, remember? So,
It's not a big deal.
it's a big deal to make sure we just get this out of the way, that we endorse the changes that they have responsibly made to the community concerns, and I credit them for that. Okay, so let's just credit them for agreeing. Why do we dispute sending something that endorses a change we all want? Why are we objecting to that, Dan? I don't understand why we want to hold this up.
We're not, well, that's part.
Hold up this letter. Why do we object
We're
to
not
sending out
holding it
this
up to the
letter?
school district, in my opinion.
Okay, well,
That's what
the
I'm
school
saying.
district and Camille both seem to think that we should get this letter out right away. That's reason enough for me.
I just think it's honestly, they want the political cover of making sure that we, since it's in our community, that we have publicly endorsed this change in strategy.
It's a compliment to us, so sort of back end.
Yeah. At least they care enough to want a letter from us.
I think what's happening, we already came to a decision on parking lot lighting, and I think that they're dicing it up to reopen it at a later date.
What decision did we come to?
The lighting on the parking lot.
Oh, you're afraid that they're going to come back with something when we're not looking later on?
So I just don't, that's, I don't see any other reason. Because none has been given. And was there an email that you sent? What date?
January 30th.
Okay, can I suggest we hear from other council members too?
Sure. That would be Scott.
The takeaway, I mean, this is, I'm not looking for any kind of negative intent from them. And they just asked us, my takeaway from the last meeting, which released this letter, was, is it okay if we uncouple the parking lot from the regular general construction so that they can move forward on the parts we like? And then we do this in a later date.
Haggle out the.
Yeah, I mean, they said they could lose contracts, and I have no reason to believe that they're lying to me, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but that was the intent. They wanted us to sign off on that, and I'm okay with that. It sounds fine to me.
Here's the correspondence on.
So the email I sent to Camille, which I remember, I said I would send personally. I sent on February 16th, Friday, 12 days ago. Hi Camille, Sean Lefectridge came to the MCC to present the new strategy of splitting the permit process to allow more time to deal with community concerns about the parking lot / lighting, thereby allowing the main construction to move forward in a first phase. The council was unanimous in supporting this move, but since it was the first time discussing it, we couldn't do a formal letter of support in that meeting. The question is, do you need a formal letter of support for the new two-phase permit strategy? If so, how quickly do you need it? If it's easier to discuss this on the phone, just let me know and I can give you a call and discuss. And you'll respond.
So 4 days later, she didn't ask us. The school district asked us, and now you're asking Camille. So Camille did not ask us. It's only the school district.
No, but Camille says.
But yes, but in part because of our discussion with you, we agreed that I would ask Camille, do you need a letter? Because you said, I don't think we need a letter. And I said, I think we got to do. And so I said, let's ask Camille. And if she says we don't need one, then great. If we're all done and we can move on to the other 50 things we've got on our list. And her response was, hi, Gus. This is the February 20th, 4 days later. Hi, Gus. It would be great to have a new letter to add to that last MCC letter to express support for this approach and to include in it with the staff report for the anticipated planning commission meeting of April 24th. Can you provide the letter by March 25th? Question mark. Thanks.
I'm prepared. I'm prepared to do. We haven't heard from Ann.
Yeah, I think you should send the letter because they're asking for a response. And I do feel that, I mean, they made it very clear that they could lose funding if it's delayed. And I don't want to see that happen. They, at least it seemed to me that they were willing to make changes. So I think their willingness to listen to public concern and try to make changes, I think the least we can do is support the school and make sure they have the funds they need. I don't want to see any delay that would stop the funding.
That's the part that's part with some of us. Is that they're gonna blame us for these possible.
So let's send this letter and they can't blame us because we said we're happy to do it.
That's not a question.
All right, let's do it. Wait a minute. Wait, Kimberly had something to say.
I don't, but what does occur to me is I thought that that last meeting, we all voted on this particular course of action.
We all sort of unofficially sent to council. Because we couldn't vote on something formally because
We didn't have it.
That's why we have to do it on a letter and agenda. Put it in.
Call the question.
All right, so let's do the vote. All right.
Oh, wait a minute. Sid Young has her hand up.
Oh, wait, haven't done public comment. Right. Sorry. Record scratch.
I'll be
All right.
really quick. I was just going to say, if you do send the letter, why don't you say that you're in full support with changing out the parking, whatever, bifurcating the project, as long as you get final say on the lighting. And that way, if they try to switch it up and go around you, you have it in writing. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, let's just.
Can I respond to that? The phrasing is a subsequent permitting phase of the project. There will be a subsequent permitting phase. We will have the chance to comment. There's no reason to change the letter.
Great.
Awesome. Cool. Are there any other things?
Again. Do I need to keep the letter up on the screen?
ABC, always being calm.
Yeah. Actually, taking the long view, this is one of the few times that the school district is paying much attention to the Midcoast Council. This is an advisory council. They could blow us off on all this stuff and just do whatever they can please if they can push through otherwise. I think it's a testimony to the work that this council has been doing, the amount of work that all of you have been putting in, that they're taking this Midcoast Council seriously. And the superintendent, who I kind of have a queasy feeling about sometimes, I looked at the school board meeting the other night, and he's not bad at all on this particular issue. He's giving the Midcoast Council some authority in his thinking anyway. So I consider this kind of a win to split the project in two, and if there's a fight over the parking lot, I think there's room to do that later on. So go ahead.
Thank you, Bob. Yes, I feel like the school.
Seeing no other public comment?
Yeah, so we should do for them. All right. Yes. So closing public comment.
Ready to go.
And Anne is ready. Let's do it.
Okay. So, Gus,
Yep.
Greg,
Yes.
Kimberly,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
and me, yes.
Can I make a point of clarification? I maybe should have brought this up. It's addressed to Camille, which is appropriate.
Yeah.
And I have copy Ray Mueller and county staff. By county staff, I was implying Gina and Michael Mia. Okay. But I didn't list the CUSD people.
Yeah, you should.
I should include the CUSD people we've dealt with. Okay.
Great. Okay. So then we got awesome. So I think we're actually coming to talk about.
There's something I'd like to mention that's kind of in line with that, but before I lose the thought.
Yeah.
And that is the issue that Steve Terry raised earlier about communication within the council and with the council and the public. I think tonight this was a good example of why he raised that. We need to seek more clarity in what we're communicating at the time and record action items so that we don't lose that and become confused later. And my recollection of the issue over splitting this project into two parts with the parking lot separate, was a little different in that I thought we had put that to rest. And I did, when we voted last time, feel that the school district approached us in good faith. And that I was satisfied, and I recall saying this, that they were doing their best to meet the needs that the community had regarding the project, including the lighting. So, you know, it might prove me wrong later, but I think this also ties into what Chrislyn said last time as well, that we need to be a little more positive in how we approach these things and how we approach individuals. And I'm willing to believe that the school is in alignment with what we expect. They know what we expect them to do, and they are willing to do that, to explore these things and come to some conclusion that meets our request. Communication wise, I think at the end of every meeting, we need to call out our action items so that we are all clear what we're on the hook for and what we've decided. And then at the next meeting, at the top of the meeting, we need to review those again to make sure that those things were followed up on. So that's what I have to say.
Great process suggestions.
I don't know what the legality of them is, but what she just described is what we used to do in business all the time.
I also do this at most of my other meetings for work and for other groups. This actually, that cued me on something else, in that one thing I discovered, and this is not the first time, is that there was correspondence had on an issue I was working with that I was not aware of, and that was not sanctioned by this council. And that's, I think, is part of this, and that we need to be very clear about council approval for communications that put forth a certain viewpoint or a certain stance on an issue that we are looking into.
Board says every council meeting. Is it the representative of the city?
That's correct, but what I'm getting at here is that I know it's very easy sometimes to send emails to find things out. But some emails I notice go out and they're not seeking information, they're stating information. So they're coming forth as a position that the council has taken, and I don't think that those are appropriate.
So in terms of Midcoast priorities, this sounds like it goes to a sort of guideline document that ought to be written, and I don't. Okay.
I mean, I can give you examples, but I think one of the examples tonight is I did not have that correspondence between you and me, and I was not aware of it. There was a communication with Greg over the Montero Mountain thing with Linda and the county, which I was totally aware of as well. And those kinds of communications are not just simple communications. They're a little more far-reaching and substantive, and I think those are things that should be approved by the council before they happen. Well, I looked at my email to discussing this just now. The last correspondence I saw was January 30th.
Right. The agreement last time was that I would.
I guess my expectation at that point would be when you got the response and you shared it with us.
I thought I saw it.
I think if it doesn't involve a particular, considering a particular issue, if it's just a process point, it is different.
I agree. Spirit of John is to.
I'm concerned about the letter. I would make sure the person knows.
So there's
Why would
nothing
it not
about,
be? You're saying, asking, why is it not shown?
Because I was asking a question about something that would need to be voted. So I just assumed that's why I didn't involve everybody. Because it was discussing something that would need to be voted. Like a letter that you would need to vote on.
but there was no commenting, it was this. But there
Yes. Okay, so my mistake is I misunderstood how that all the way together.
So
That was.
I understand that. I'm also very nervous about the brownout and I'm assuming doing it, but I'm just bringing that up as a thing that we need to pay attention to that. Communication, these communication glitches are getting in the way. And we need to just be more aware and more clear in how we communicate with each other and maybe at large.
So could I make a suggestion that Kimberly document what she thinks the policy should look like?
Does it take on the written policy?
I think it should be. written.
Yeah, that was one of them.
And of course, while I appreciate her concerns, as you know, I have a bias for action. And so, I also want to see what that looks like because I do want to empower council members to get things going that are agreed by the council as areas of inquiry, et cetera. But,
That's delicate.
I know it's delicate. So I think we need that written procedure.
So I guess where I would start with that is to look back at where Lisa appointed us to when we first came on board and the council member, to the policies that already exist for the council and see what we could, what needs to be added to that before starting from scratch.
Right. I don't know, I'm thinking that calling the policy, we have done, where I think it's a lot more comfortable to just call this the practice that we choose, this council chooses to operate with, and just leave it at that. We're gonna operate this way, and if it, instead of like, trying to put it in policy, let's try it out, and probably gonna work good for us, and hand it over to the next council. It's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, so when they try to get out, I don't know exactly what it is.
Well, I would write down that it's good to get something right, to actually call it policy and try to attempt to.
Yeah. Well, it is codified in the minutes of the meeting. I'm comfortable if you're gonna leave it at that.
I applaud your attempt to do this because it sounds the possibilities of communication are infinite. And to write a guideline for this, if you were successful, I think it'd be freaking awesome.
We'll take a whack at it. We can always, we'll take a whack at it, and we as a council can always just say, no, throw that in the trash. So,
There's a lot of what ifs.
okay, what else did we have for discussing our priorities? Well, we're in the middle of that discussion. We have. Yes. So, where do we go? We had sort of roughly allocated tasks that we.
And I published what my notes showed were agreed at the last meeting, and I was posted to the website. If there's any problems, Gus, I assume that people can bring them to you and I'll change the document. Well, I don't know that that's the most important thing, but I can. Let me find it.
As far as one of the tasks, where it's, I'm happy to put it through this. That's the part, I know it's a responsibility. One of them said responsibility. And then after that, it's continuing. Good, that's good. Yeah, but not, that's good. Just.
Yes.
Can you advise what wording you want changed on this list? You don't have to do it now, Dan. You could send us a text. It says meeting binder and printed materials for meetings. That's what it says.
Yes.
Okay, so you want it to be printed materials for meetings.
That's it.
I thought we had to have one copy of every document that was part of the agenda to be discussed. So it's not just the agenda.
I'm going to bring the agendas, but if somebody else then you have to bring one copy of all the supporting documents.
And that goes in
the office. Oh,
I think it has to be here for like somebody wants to.
Yeah, years ago, I was into the website.
there's an actual binder.
There was.
Just buy it.
We could ask the county staff that supports us to provide that.
could put it in here.
Okay, well, somebody's gotta bring one.
Well, as Lisa said, there's a printer at the office. I don't know if it works.
Somebody, let's make a separate.
So you're instructing Ann to minute what action item here?
So we will add a line to this that says Kimberly will bring one printed copy with all supporting documents to each document. They will bring copies of the agenda.
I'm sorry to bother you guys, but can you get closer to the microphones? It's hard to hear.
So Kimberly is going to bring one printed copy of each of the supporting documents to the meetings. Dan is going to bring a few copies of the agenda to each of the meetings. Are there any other tactical things with this grid and assignments that we need to discuss? Because I think where we went through it, okay. All right. So I think where we actually left off is looking at what things we want to work on. So as like what things we want to.
The one thing I would say is that, is that there will be other topics or issues that will come up that we may need to add to this.
Sure.
There will be issues that come up.
It's a living document. This is just
What's the this he's referring to, the task and assignment list or the
Yes.
priorities list?
the task and assignment list. Right, so. What do you want to look at?
What's the question?
What things do we want to work on? What are our priorities?
Ed has his hand raised. I'm not sure why.
I think I know why, because we promised at the end of the last meeting that we would look at the priorities from last year and determine the status of those and what's still needed going forward.
All right, let's thank you.
But maybe we should ask them that if that's.
Sure. Sounds good. Burnett,
Yes.
does that sound accurate?
Actually, it somewhat, but I wanted to make a comment about the priorities. And I have a written statement relating to the stormwater report and the Quarry Park issue. So if you give me my 3 minutes, I'll give that statement and get it into the record, and you can understand where we are coming from. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. As you know, Burnett Silvera, El Granada, speaking for the neighbors to Quarry Park. As you continue to work on the stormwater report, we, the neighbors to Quarry Park, wanted to update you on and emphasize the need to solve the dangerous flooding problem that the stormwater runoff from Quarry Park continues to pose to the El Granada community and its residents. Before your February 21st meeting, we sent you correspondence as a backdrop and refresher of that problem. Hopefully, you've had an opportunity to review those materials. As some of you may recall, the Quarry Park Master Plan was approved by the Board of Supervisors at the end of 2022. The plan highlighted the park's flooding runoff problem and the danger it posed, but the plan provided no solution to address the problem. Instead, it focused on the planned erosion control improvements that dump even more runoff into our community, all without discussing the increased runoff from the improvements. Those two situations represent not only a current runoff problem, but a future increase in runoff. Both need to be considered in your upcoming stormwater report. The MCC did support the master plan without inclusion of a solution to the park's runoff, but recommended resolution of the problem outside the master plan. That has not yet been done. But the county in 2018 did address about 1/3 of the Quarry Park runoff problem by placing some of the runoff underground down Avenue Cabrillo from the Alameda to existing storm drain system at Avenue Alhambra. Unfortunately, the county did not address the flooding runoff from its source at the park's entrance down more populous residential streets to the Alameda. The county also has a partial drainage project planned for Ferdinand Avenue in El Granada, although the site suffers much less runoff than the dangerous runoff from Quarry Park. The yearly flooding threat from Quarry Park requires the surrounding neighbors, many of them seniors, to sandbag to protect themselves and their property. And like last year, caused the Parks Department to again divert some runoff down more residential streets this year. And the storm runoff from Quarry Park has gotten much worse in recent years, with dangerous flooding events in 2017, 2021, and of course, last year in 2023. And more storms forecast for this year. Recent storms have already greatly increased steady runoff from the park, and it's rising. With the MCC working on a stormwater report to help Supervisor Mueller address stormwater problems on the Midcoast, please keep the Quarry Park flooding problem on the front burner for resolution as you move forward. Something has to be done. We can't keep fighting dangerous runoff from Quarry Park with sandbags every year. At some point, serious injury or damage will occur. Thank you all for your help and support.
Thank you, Burnett. Okay. So. So we're starting with our review of last year's.
Whatever you want for the format. I just put this up because this is what we had last year, and I changed the title. But
no, I think it's not.
So we had a thing in here for Chris, and of course we know Ray got the money, but we don't know what he's done with it. We heard him say that the new head of the Office of Emergency Services was interested, but a year and change has gone by since the storm, and we don't have the beginnings of a plan for it. So, I mean, I'm very interested in following up on this and trying to get action. And then we have transportation and mobility. We have wildfire risk and emergency preparedness, which you heard some people speak about.
So what do we have?
We have the project that's now starting. Highway 1 planning for sea level rise, which kind of came up in letters from the community, and that's obvious priority. The East Side Parallel Trail, I think the issue there is extending the rest of the way into Montclair. The Highway Moss Beach Corridor Study, you may remember Shonda had us support a grant for them to study it. Just getting started. I'm not the one to speak to all this stuff, transportation demand management and the work group. I think you're the work group leader. But I mean, if you want to just overview the topics, there's a topic. Wildfire risk and emergency preparedness. And one community member didn't want me to bring this up, but I will anyway. We had an RCD scoping project done a couple of years ago, which was perceived as a leading edge model of how to do things. RCD says it was state of the art. They got some grant money. They did a simulation. But where's the follow-up? Okay. And we had a wildfire coordinator that Don Horsley got us $100,000 for. And the guy was there for 3 months and disappeared. So as far as I know, we don't have any plan for wildfire management and mitigation in our area.
We may come up with a response that goes for It makes sense to me.
Well, so there are some people that think that study that was done was flawed and they have a good case. But the point is, without getting into the details, who's in charge? Where's the task list? Who's assigned? What are they doing? I mean, you're right. They flagged Deer Creek. Who's doing what about Deer Creek? You know, I think there's a vacancy here. And then the next issue is shoreline and harbor sea level rise, which again, kind of welcome the climate crisis. It's hitting us now on Murata Surf again on Highway 1. So, I mean, that's an obvious priority. Midcoast telecommunications access, you know, we did the report. We still don't have a solution, although I could give an update on some things I'm interested in that. And then we have the Midcoast development projects, and then, you know, it's just this, the fire station and Cypress Point we're working on county lighting policies. I think we have general understanding. You know, we would like a dark sky thing. That's down here actually. And then we have a whole bunch of issues about the effectiveness of the MCC, you know, and working together with the county, and that's going to be just like communications guidelines. And we had Crystal talk. So, I mean, there's a bunch of meat there. Oh, and then my favorite, county funding for the Midcoast. How much money do we contribute? What do they spend it on? I still haven't heard what the measure pay money.
I worked on that also, and that seemed like a dead end.
Well, it shouldn't be a dead.
Yeah, I went in person. To try to I went down to the Redwood City just to ask some questions, and they're like, no, you don't know anything about it. So, and I do have a report, but it's very vague.
Which report do you have?
You can get it online. I'll show it to you.
Okay. Well, you know, I've been involved in cost accounting applications for over 50 years. You know, going back to anything. It's 52 years since I started that stuff. There's just no way. We had it on a mini computer in the mid 80s, the early 80s.
The answer was we don't.
Okay.
Yeah, that was impacted.
Well, so the problem is, in terms of what is it worth spending on the coast, part of that answer is how much do we contribute? Part of it is what we need, but I mean, we're not getting any information.
Should we try another round of digging into that?
I would like to. I mean, I don't, whether it's council activity or not, I plan on doing it. But, you know, and then we have, what do we have here? Local utility agency financial stability, sustainability. And the question is whether that's within our scope. The sewer plant has problems. I could give a long update. The sewer plant has problems. Coastside lighting issues. Is this overlap the other thing? Yeah. Lack of code enforcement. Well, that goes back to Okinawa Fire Station and a whole bunch of other complaints we had about walkways in Okinawa that weren't official sidewalks, but represented safety issues, about the traffic around Fairlawn the elementary school, which has still not been addressed, and we're waiting that 2 years. I think. Real school funding. I don't know that there's a role for the MCC, but it's been an issue in our district that the school district doesn't have because of the funding formula. It has about the lowest per pupil, you know, stuff. All right. Well, so, and then we had a bunch of other items that I put at the end here. I just talked about unaddressed Montero traffic risk, herbicides and pesticides. The school model, I think, is on the rails. Montero Mountain is on the rails. Tenant protection ordinance. I don't know if we missed that, but they were drafting one, didn't talk to us, and then they tabled it, and we're supposed to come back. I haven't heard about it. Code violation issues. I think we just talked about the CARES program where we asked for money to fund that mental health thing. And the county is doing something. I thought a $3.4 million allocation for what sounded suspiciously similar to what Happening Bay's already been doing, but it didn't answer the question of are they doing it with Happening Bay or are they doing it for us? I don't know. Transportation assistance, that related to the senior citizens thing that came up where we said, what about for here, for Montero? And then there was also the fentanyl toxic wastewater thing we didn't get into. All right, so that's a quick review of just some things. Okay, so the first question is, what's missing? What is
What should be on the list?
Take it.
We, I think, could, in good conscience, line out some of the school stuff, the Cypress Point stuff. We're near, I think, the point.
Montero Mountain, we're getting close.
Well, we're getting close. Give us a month or two.
So what I'd like to see is for each of those things, what we actually did is that what we're going to.
Oh, sorry, I stopped sharing.
What we actually achieved for each item. Because I see what we were going to do, but what did we actually do that is now done?
You giving me homework?
Well, I'm asking, maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to go through here and say, here's what is done, here's what we've done, so that we keep track. And then here's what's left to do in that item, or maybe there's nothing left to do in that item, in which case it drops off.
Which raises an interesting question. Wouldn't it be great if we had a system where we recorded issues and their resolution so we didn't have to hand produce spreadsheets on an ad hoc basis? We would just have a request for action system, and as we completed things, the analysis section would describe what happened and we would know who did it.
Right. Assuming we are not going to have any non-geologic timescale, let's go through this picture.
The problem with that system, like my opinion, is that things just kind of get missed. Generally doesn't work. It's better to have somebody like on top of it. That's my.
Fair enough. What do you want me to do with this? All right, let's go back to the top.
Well, each of these things had a person assigned to them, do they not?
Not necessarily.
So the first thing was just run down the blue column. So that first thing is a letter requesting participation. So we were supposed to write a letter to someone about something.
It was a thought. We were supposed to follow Ray's efforts, and there might have been an email on this to Ray, but there was never.
I guess I don't really understand.
I guess what I would say is, given what's happening on Marana Surf, it's fully appropriate at some point for the council to write a letter about our concerns and whose concerns there.
Yeah.
And my thought, and it's my thought only, is to say CRISP should have been rolling along. What is CRISP going to say about what we should do about that stretch of the coast and many other things? But to me, that's a kind of a topic that a coastal resilience infrastructure strategic plan would deal with. So I would say we have this concern. What's going on with CRISP?
My understanding, though, with CRISP is that those shoreline issues are not part of that, are they? That's a separate thing.
Your understanding may be correct. I don't see why it should be
I
separate.
don't see it with.
It's a coastal resilient, infrastructure strategic plan. It would seem to me that roads and sewer and water along the coast is all part of that. So
This is something I wanted to queue up for future meetings when we get to that part, that I think a lot of them should have a presentation with experts, and we should be in the community about, what they're thinking about this. I don't think we should just dash off a letter based on two emails.
Well, we definitely need that, because my first thought was, is the armoring legal?
It's not.
Okay.
Well, that's not true. Some of it originally was unpermitted,
Well, that's what I mean,
and
unpermitted.
it's been added to over the years.
Okay.
There are a lot of issues with that stretch, and it impacts the adjacent shoreline as well. So you can't just apply something to that stretch and that.
Right, sure. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of educational work to do too, to bring us all up to speed about concepts and things
So if you bring a person in who's an expert in all the ideas behind this, we can communicate to the community that what is done, there won't be any more, or there will be a lot more, because people in the community say, why don't we pile up more boulders in front of that road? Well, you can say because it's not legal, we're not.
Or you could say, why don't we do what they did on, was it called the West Trail over the other side of the harbor? They have a more natural way of controlling erosion. Or living shoreline. And the thing Dan brought up years ago about those things they were installing in Africa, remember those things, Dan, that had the conical hole? You remember? I mean, so, the question is, what else could be done?
And we don't want to devolve into actually talking about the issue now, right? We want to have that.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, I was just about to say, okay, so it sounds to me like Marana Road is an item which is somewhere in this.
Sounds like a future agenda.
Yes, it sounds like a future agenda. And it sounds like something that should be in our priorities list. But going back to the top, because we never actually addressed, like, what is supposed to be, like, I don't understand what's going to be that box, or should that, like, for follow the supervisor's efforts on Chris, I'm meeting with them every month. I can ask them for this, see, like, is that, like, what else tactically is supposed to be accomplished with this?
That's a long question. I would expect a request for proposal to go out to various firms to deal with different aspects of the coastal infrastructure.
Is that something?
No, but I think we would be requesting that the county author that RFP and that we be a stakeholder who participates in selecting the consultant and identifying the scope of the RFP.
So the tactical thing we would be doing is sending a letter to the county. This thing
Right, but it starts with Ray. I'd like to find out from Ray privately. Did he just drop the ball? Did he get resistance from the county? Did somebody at the county agree to pick up the ball? If somebody is picking up the ball, how does he want us to work with them? And then we'll decide whether we write the letter or what letter we write.
Okay, so to get closure on this, that's what we want for today. What has happened? And what we'd like to see happen on the action items, but that would be something new. And then we can
decide what to do once we learn what he's doing, not doing, what the county's doing or not doing.
So immediately, it's just understanding what's going on. Chris, and when at what points there will be some kind of feeling.
Right. Just for more background, you are aware that some significant money has been spent down in Pescadero, God love them, to deal with some of the flooding and other issues they're having. And at one point, Ray had said something, or was it privately to you? You say here in public about how, well, I can't just do Chris for you guys. I have to take into account all the rest of the county. Yet nonetheless, they ran off and did a bunch of good stuff in Pescadero. So why can't they run off and do a bunch of good stuff for us here? I don't know. I don't understand the process.
I think the answer is it's very complicated and some of the community is very
Split.
Exactly. And it's very complicated.
So you can't solve all these. Will we come to? How much longer is this going to take?
That's really the question. That's really the question.
So I was thinking about that too. I kept looking at that clock over there.
Okay.
And so do you want to have this as an ongoing agenda item? And say, let's chew on this a little bit every week? Oh, I heard Claire.
What?
Maybe for next time, what we see this up again, and for next time, what we do is we come back with, whoever, I will call people assigned to each of these, come back with what we think falls under each of these categories that still needs to happen. And then we decide what things we want to pursue and what we don't.
And I substantially agree with that. I would phrase, who's volunteering to lead the effort, and each of us come back with our list of the things that we think are priorities, even if they're not on this list. And, Kimberly, Greg are willing to advance this issue to the point where it becomes agendized, becomes letters, whatever. So I think we ask for our personal willingness to move things forward. Because we have this long list and there's 7 of us and we're not even paid, and the story. Just, we need to focus on what people are willing to work on.
Yes, I also want to just make sure that everything in our 2024, so maybe there's a 2024 one. A very specific tactic. This as opposed to generally and I don't want it to sort of, but some of them
that's in some these are ones that makes them change.
And that's the longer, bigger picture stuff can be post.
So you're going to add a column to this spreadsheet. But
one that says who's going to do it.
For the process point, do you agree that we all think about what we are willing to advance and bring that back to the council, and then we can discuss priorities based on volunteer momentum or something? Right. Community and volunteer momentum. Right. Certainly stormwater that Burnett just put.
Okay. So everybody understands. Each of us then has a takeaway to consider what things you would want to actually advance forward to the point where it eventually becomes an agenda.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So everybody's going to have something.
Is this on the website someplace?
It's posted on the main agenda blog post. Yes. Okay. And if you want, I could even get you the source document. But I'll study it.
Okay.
I'd like a copy of the PDF.
It's a PDF on the website right now.
Did you already email?
I don't think I emailed this. I posted this before the last meeting. So it's on that particular date. But I could email it to you. I could do
It's not a bother.
I could do that right now.
Do it right now. Okay. Then the next thing. Okay. So I'm closing this now since we have a tactical to deliver this time. Great. And then the next thing is
that special meeting?
Okay. So we need to.
Or is this going to be on agenda for the special meeting?
No, the special meeting is just going to be set as well, because that's going to take. Okay. That's it.
You got to use your sarcasm. We better spend some of that. I'm going to write a check out for pizza right now, if that's going to be the case.
Okay, so we're going to have. So the report's coming out on the 7th. That special meeting.
It's the 13th or the 10th.
Whatever the Sunday is.
Yeah. Probably.
Whatever Sunday.
It'll be 10 if the 7 is the Thursday.
Sunday the 10th. What time on Sunday the 10th? I government at work. It's like, it took a lot longer than that should have. But okay.
It's late.
It is. It's like what time on Sunday?
Is it Sunday?
Yep, Sunday. Yes, Sunday the 10th.
I have church and driving responsibilities, so I become available at 3 in the afternoon.
I actually work Sunday.
Yeah, that's fine.
4, something like that.
Four.
Not to go beyond 8.
Oh God, no.
Okay, we better start it before. Sorry, Dan. Yes, what?
Sunday. Because you get the information on Thursday.
Get the information on Thursday. Leave some time to digest it. Do we really want to leave it Saturday? Or we want the public to participate, right? Yes. Yep. Change Saturday. Okay.
Burnett has his hand up. Burnett, hello, devil.
Yeah, sorry, I've already spoken, but it sort of relates to the next item. Is those of you who didn't attend the Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday, I would suggest you might want to take a look at the video. They had somebody there from I believe it is One Shoreline talking about the projects that they're working on and so on, not only about the sea level rise, but also some flooding issues that they're doing. And they actually did show what they were doing on the coast. And it seems to be pretty much a couple projects down in Pescadero. Might be what Greg was referring to. I don't recall the actual details, but what came to mind to me was these guys getting involved with that flooding next to the airport. If that road gets flooded out, that's one entrance exit out of the mid-coast that is not going to be usable. And it might be some way to bring them in to address that issue of that flooding of the Highway 1 near the airport.
Maybe so, but I think the Caltrans project is going to be in that area.
It is a Caltrans project.
Doing the logistics bridge.
So what time do you want it on?
If you want, Sid also has it.
Sid has
Sid, go.
I'll be really quick. What the man Burnett Silveria was talking about was Len Matterman, and they meet pretty much monthly, although they cancel a lot of meetings. But Deborah Ruddock's on there, and so is Ray for One Shoreline. And then they mostly are worried about the bay. The one thing that Ray had on the agenda, but it was pulled and postponed for 2 more weeks. He's going to subpoena AT&T to come in and testify about, getting rid of landlines and stuff. And the guy came in and promised he would appear in 2 weeks. So they postponed it, but that should be an interesting one for your guys' CRISP program. That's all I want to say. Bye.
Okay, thanks, Sid. Okay, do you have a proposal for quad 5? That should figure out if we give us out. Everybody okay with 4? Actually, 4.
Are we going to try and meet here? We have to get GCSD to agree. We have to get PCPD or not get PCPD. I mean, I can pursue these things.
So should we say the tentative time is Sunday at 4, pending making sure we have the appropriate venue and support? I better write that email right now. Okay, then while Greg is writing that email, do you have anything? Yes.
In speaking with Linda Hitchcock earlier from California State Parks, she wanted to let us know about some updates in San Mateo County. And there are 4 of them. Pigeon Point Lighthouse renovation is underway and scaffolding is up, and they are beginning the removal process, which will be a 2-year project.
Removal of what?
I'm not sure. I think it's just removal of the
Lighthouse?
not removal of the lighthouse, the removal of debris and the renovated parts that they're replacing. So maybe it's things like that. That maybe the scaffolding itself. The next one is Venice Beach South. They're repaving the lot and repairing the restrooms to have it ready for summer. Año Nuevo staging area renovation is fully committed and they hope to start work this summer. And then lastly, the Friends of Santa Cruz State Parks is hiring for a visitor services aide for San Mateo beaches. And you can find information about that at that'smypark.org.
Anybody else? Council activity?
Yeah.
Yep.
Present somebody else wants to speak. Okay. All right. Well, I will just tell you that there are a couple of important reports coming out of the sewer authority. And I think you're all aware there's this lawsuit. And as a result of, I don't want to say anybody's names, but let's just say the board at SAM was unable to agree to even fund the repair of a critical pump station. The project's now being delayed. There's going to be extra costs for mobilization, demobilization. And so this lawsuit still got them tied up. Related to that is the need for significant investment to protect the plant from sea level rise and storms. And that report was delivered 2 meetings ago. And then a report is going to come out, which is going to show the need to solve some problems with what's called infiltration and inflow, where the groundwater gets into the sewer pipes and it's helping flood the plant. So there's going to be a big deal there in terms of the investment and money needed. I don't know how that relates to CRISP because I don't know what CRISP is going to cover. Okay, but it's a combination of sea level rise and I'm guessing Half Moon Bay stormwater control that is going to need to be dealt with. And maybe you guys don't pay attention to that, but the cost implications for anybody that pays a sewer bill here are going to be significant. Just so you see.
Awesome. I actually have one for those who are interested. Pacifica will be holding the second in a series of meetings for their LCLUP update. And it has significant implications if depending on how the LCLUP is approved. And so that meeting is coming up on March 2nd. It's open to the community and you can register on their website. It will be held at Terra Nova Auditorium.
Council activity. Okay, then so future agendas. So we'll do subsequent special meeting, probably going to be at 4 o'clock on Sunday. And then our next regularly scheduled meeting will be. But what else do we have?
Gus, I'm so sorry to bother you again. Can you get closer to the mic?
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, and the special meeting, was that Sunday, the 10th, 4 to 8 p.m.?
Sunday, March 10th at 4 p.m. pending confirming that we have this access to this space and access to the technological support.
Yeah.
Then and then the next regularly scheduled meeting, which right now would be the 13th, which we are going to have to meet because we all need to attend the other.
Well, there were the 5 or 6 things that people brought up during the meeting tonight that they wanted to consider at some point. The parking issues, evacuation plan, Zone Haven, Firewise, and the quiet parks. All of those were brought up by residents. But perhaps someday.
Yes, for someday. Thank you.
Firewise, approximate things are the Montero letter. Maybe herbicides could consider to be near term, depending upon what Nick is. Oh, sorry, council member activity.
Yes.
Nick sent me a link to the video for their session. Remember, they had the hate speech. They've edited it out. I posted it to the website. And Nick is going to give us a response to the letter we had about the pesticide masks. So I hope I didn't violate the council guideline by dialoguing with Nick about what's going on. Because he's telling us he'll give us an answer.
Okay, great.
Also, before we got started, you guys were talking about.
I think it's going to be in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
You all were talking about the situation in Quarry Park with the bicyclists.
I was not going to say anything about that, but I could. Are you talking about the guy with threatening to shoot people?
Yes. I talked to people and I'm not sure we should get the MCC involved in that dispute at this time. But if you think we should, then what I would say is let's see how the county's going to handle it. But the obvious coping action, which might take a recommendation from the MCC, is to change the plot line so that there is a permitted
road of travel as there has been for 20 years for the recreational people. And that would also free up access to the El Granada Boulevard at the north. But that would require eminent domain, so we might have to ask the county to, change this guy's plot line so that there's no more dispute. And then,
So if there's
direct
confusion-
recreational people elsewhere.
If there's confusion regarding what exactly we mean by this, I can make a PowerPoint and say, this is what we're talking.
Well, you and I can work on that because I already have some of the materials you made.
Okay, because I know about how that lot is all along the road and around the two gates and all that kind of
So
stuff.
how are we going to know whether we need to do anything? Who's working on this at the county right now? Do we have anybody we
A
know?
lot of the community people that are affected by this issue have been directed to write letters to Nicholas Calderon and Mueller's Ray Mueller's office. So individuals are responding to this.
So the question is, does the MCC need to register a concern and piggyback or just wait?
I think it's just sort of that's exactly what I sort of need to insert ourselves in this.
Oh, I just had a mind to add.
Yeah, okay.
So with all the discussion of vehicle license plate readers, I actually would like to have that as a topic at a meeting to gauge how the broader community feels about that issue so that we're more prepared the next time it comes up. Because at the last meeting, we heard from two individuals, but I walked away thinking, I really don't know how the larger community feels about this issue, and it would be helpful to them.
It's not going to come up right away.
I don't think it's urgent to have it on the agenda, but
Yes, so that's another kind of meeting term. Okay, so we have to figure out when is the next scheduled, regularly scheduled, since we can't attend our own meeting with the. So when is it?
Well,
27th?
the 27th is the regular scheduled date. If we can see the special meeting takes time, the 13th, which we're canceling. But if you wanted an extra meeting for next Wednesday, the 20th.
Was there anything so pressing that we have to?
My preference would be to do the special meeting on the 10th of the next regular stuff.
Someone.
Yes. Yes.
Fantastic.
is there a reason why we can't do it in the next week?
The what?
Saturdays.
The 6th is a Wednesday.
The report doesn't come out till the 7th.
Oh, it's right.
Right, so we're all agreed on. 10th is a special meeting, 27th is the next regular.
Okay, so I will issue cancellation notice for the meeting of the 13th. And you already have a copy of an email, unless we hear from GCSD and PCTV. We'll see whether the 10th flies.
Yes, so as soon as we hear back that we can have this spot at 4 p.m. on the 10th, we will let everybody. For sure.
So on the 13th, we're all expected to attend the planning commission. That
What do you mean by?
There's no Zoom.
You have the opportunity. I certainly.
Yeah.
well, I mean,
There's no Zoom.
There's no Zoom.
That's what she said.
I'm gonna be in New York, so.
I will be attending.
well, it is our meeting night, and this issue came up before, right? Whether we could all go to a meeting, or some of us can go to a meeting that constitutes a meeting.
I think we can all go, but we can't talk to each other.
Yes.
So if 3 or less of us show up, we can talk to each other.
Yes. Okay.
Do not fear the Brown Act. I sense that there's a fear of it.
Are you referring to the fact that in the history of the act, that one person has ever been convicted of a violation?
So stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so
Let's not do the first.
so we're not meeting on the 20th.
Second.
Sorry, so what?
So we're not meeting on the 20th.
Yes, we're meeting on the 20th.
Okay,
Okay.
let's.
So, okay, so wait. So, but to your point, can we have a summary of what we take a look through it.
Well, I'm pursuing scheduling. Rescheduling, canceling.
Guys, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I cannot understand anything that you're saying about dates. I'm completely lost for the last 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, there will be a special meeting pending confirmation that we have this space at 4 p.m. on Sunday the 10th. We will have our special meeting to discuss the report from the planning department about Cypress Point on that date, 4 p.m. Sunday the 10th. The next, we will cancel the normal meeting we would have on March 13th because that is we all need to attend the planning thing instead, because that's that same night at 6 p.m. So we're canceling the meeting we would normally have on March 13th. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be Wednesday, the 27th at the usual time, 7 p.m. That's the summary of the dates.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Official announcements will be coming out.
Awesome.
Great. So now our takeaways, tasks, action items. Action items.
Kimberly was going to share with me the letter, and then she's from Montero Mountain, and then I'm going to give her whatever thoughts I have, and she's going to draft it up for the next meeting where it can fit on the agenda.
Good. And Claire and I will submit something to Tim asking for clarification on the
Secret
1449
criteria.
Yes.
Right.
So, yes.
Don't accept as I say so.
I mean, if that's what he says, like I can't. What am I going to do? Go to his house with a baseball bat and say that doesn't
just crafted their basis for you.
We're meeting at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon if you're available. If you're not, we can work on it and then get with you later.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Were there any other action items? Like, oh, by the way, Anne, as part of your role, in all our future meetings, anytime we have okay, here's our action item thing, we just like put that off like in a separate little handwritten list, and then at the end of the meeting, can I just call on you to just remind us what all those were? Can that just be part of our little meeting process going forward?
Yeah, that would be fine. Like a lot of others said, though, tonight was really difficult because of the audio. It was really hard to hear what you were saying. So would you like me to go over what I was able to hear?
Yeah, if you can do that. Great.
So as far as the future agenda, I got the special meeting, March 10th. I think you already went through that, 4 to 8 p.m.
Yep.
Canceled the March 13th meeting. And then the regularly scheduled meeting will be at 7 p.m. Wednesday, the 27th. And you will have the Montero Mountain letter for discussion. And I did not get anything else. I wasn't sure if Kimberly's request for the license plate reader or if we're going.
That's a more medium term thing. That's not for the next.
Right. So then what about stormwater? Was that?
That depends on somebody writing up, the whole thing. I want to see the SAM report that's coming out.
So I don't think we have a specific action item for next time.
We might have a discussion on herbicides if Nick gets back to us, and I think he will before March 27th.
But
We also had a request from the library.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but I don't remember when it is.
Sometime March or April, they say.
March or April. Okay, so we can figure out where that goes once we see what other things we've got.
We should probably tell them first.
Yes, we will figure that out. So when we do our
yeah,
we'll do that. Okay, but any other, and do you have any other notes on specific action items that came up? Okay, I think
Greg has to send the letter we voted to approve.
Okay, all right, great. That's good. Yes, thank you.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say, sending of the school letter, and I think that's all I have.
Great.
And then we were all going to come to the next meeting. We said it, already assigned.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, that was the great. Everybody comes to the next meeting with their thoughts on what specific things they're willing to push along to the point where we have an agenda as to discussion.
And can we get these action items by email like soon, or do we have to wait for the minutes? That's a question for Ann.
I'm sorry, what is it?
Can we get this list of action items soon, or do we have to wait for the entire minutes?
He wants them separate.
You want, wait a minute. What am I supposed to do with the
So
list?
Greg is request, I think this is actually a good idea, requesting that the, just send out to the council a list of here's what the action items were in writing, since the ones we just discussed right now.
Okay.
Rather than waiting for them to be included in the entire minutes,
Yes.
which could be weeks.
So you ask me for those from time to time, and so when I was taking notes in this notebook, I would put a star next to anything I considered an action item. So I could just whip to my notes and crank out an email and say, these are the things you said we would do, if that was something the chairman is interested in.
Yeah, I think
And then I would make
something.
it red in the minutes. If it's an action item, I would make it red. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Ann decide how she wants to do, but I think that's a great, something like that.
yeah, however you want to do.
And just for Kimberly, who came late, the automatic license plate readers are being considered by Half Moon Bay. The coast already has deployed them, but one. We only have one. So that's, you don't have to bring it up because the sheriff's already deployed them.
I don't think that's true.
You're right. I was just going to say, if the claim was made by somebody that there was one, my recollection was that they had put one in Moss Beach. I looked carefully the last couple of times I've driven through Moss Beach, and I haven't seen it.
I don't think it's there.
I think it was removed if it ever was installed.
I thought I saw it on one of the signs near Montera Beach. It's one of
Okay,
those.
I'll look there.
They're hard to spot, but they might be able to move it around too. But that was Captain Alban that said it at the Half Moon Bay City Council meeting when they discussed it. I brought it up. Thank you.
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
You could try.
Yeah, we're only 2 minutes behind me. It's not
Well,
bad, but it's-
there was numerous going on. It was a little bit hard. It was a really hard stop, but
I never heard that rumor.
What happened to our county liaison tonight?
So moved. So moved. By acclamation, are we all cool with that? Yes. Great. We're done.
Right.